Hey, so this is the end of January and I'm now recording for February. The whole idea of this is to give you a real good sound understanding of the energies in February. So for instance, as we go into February, what are the conditions of the planets from January, in that handover, and where are we going, like where's the handover from February to March? I'm breaking it down on a week by week basis, sharing one chart a week to show how the energies are building within the planets, what story is emerging. And there are some big stories. In particular, I really want to pick up on the thread of how it's going, how this whole year has started. There's some really epic stuff in this first quarter of 2024. And it's important that we see the whole of February in context, I think. And then towards the end, I'm breaking this down even further. So it's not just week by week, but, I'm breaking it down on a sign by sign basis. Now, some people use this by listening to their star sign. I recommend you listen to your ascendant because the way I'm breaking it down, I've broken it down to look at each sign from the ascendant basis using whole sign Western tropical astrology. Now, it's not how I practice astrology, by the way. When I work with clients, I'm usually using something like Placidus, but I find it's an interesting metaphor. It's an easy metaphor to use whole sign. It gives you a great story. It gives you a great blueprint or roadmap for the month ahead. And if you are experienced and if you use Placidus or Co or whatever you prefer, then you can navigate it in your own way. So for instance, my ascendant is at 12 degrees in the sign of Scorpio. So my fourth house does start in the sign of Aquarius. However, it's like halfway through Aquarius. So for me, Pluto isn't in my fourth house, it's in my third. So, if you're experienced enough, you know how to jiggle these readings around, but I've provided them for you as an easy snapshot to the month ahead, from which you should get some meaning. I do hear from some people who also listen to their moon sign. So another way of looking at this is these forecasts I'm providing at the end. The ascendant really gives you the infrastructure and the way of looking at your world. If you look at it from the sun sign perspective, it gives you a real flavor for what your personality is going through right now, and your I guess a sense of who you really are as the individual. And if you look at the moon sign forecast, you may well find that ties into your psyche and what you're experiencing that way. So, these forecasts are to be played with, have fun with them. Now, my name's Louisa. For those of you that don't know, this is my little brainchild, Feel Good Astrology, because I think astrology can be a bit stuffy, can be full of jargon, and it tends to attract a lot of really brilliant intellectual types, who love reading about it and working out these calculations. So it really suits people that can see patterns and who enjoy testing themselves quite a bit. But I also think that it can be used by everyone, so I'm really trying to break it down so it's less intellectual, less snotty, a bit more accessible. That's the whole purpose of this, because I think it's a fantastic tool that we can use to really change our lives and make better decisions. And the whole purpose of the way I use it is to create greater freedom for people and a sense of greater clarity. So I'm hoping that this whole forecast is there to help you feel more ease in life. What could be better than that? So with that out the way, let's have a look now at the first part of this video, which is very much about the infrastructure of February, like what is going on. Now, let's just bring up some slides. So when we started, this is one of my slides from my overview for 2024, which we're galloping into already. But, I was talking about all these things that are happening. So we've just had this. Pluto's just gone into Aquarius. It is going to come out and then go back in at the end of November. So like Pluto is kind of in and out all year. We've got a lot of strong Mars-Pluto things that I think bear attention. This is actually happening this month in February. Then we've got the North Node Chiron conjunction, which starts in February. If you're using the true North Node, or it's in early March if you're using the mean North Node. Suffice to say, the North Node and Chiron are in a conjunction from February. We're really feeling that energy. And then it starts to rapidly build up. In April, we've got the total solar eclipse, which is in a conjunction to Chiron. If you notice these degrees, they haven't moved on much. And then we've got the Uranus-Jupiter conjunction also in April. And then, we're going on to sort of like May, June and beyond. But a lot of this stuff happens like end of January to the end of April. So it's a really packed 3 months. And you'll see these degrees, so we've got like the start of Aquarius, and then this very strong emphasis between 16 to 20 degrees in the sign of Aries, and then later at 21 to 22 degrees Taurus. These are really massive energies in these positions. And this is the one that I think is getting a lot of attention at the end of this month, right the way through to mid to late April. I think these degrees are super duper strong. So what's happening in February then? So I've broken it down step by step, just so that you can see some of the patterns. So like Mercury, Mars and Venus are all going into the sign of Aquarius. We've got this I think this is quite a big conjunction, Mars conjunct Pluto. People with the Scorpio ascendant will be feeling that for sure, because both their rulers are Mars and Pluto. So February the 14th is quite a big one. Venus is also in on the act there as well. So it's quite a smouldering energy for sure. And then things seem to change from the 19th, when we've got the sun going into Pisces. The North Node is in its exact true conjunction to Chiron. So that's a very, very strong day. And then, there is this building up of energy from the 19th right the way through to the end, where we've got the Sun, Mercury and Saturn in a conjunction at 9 degrees in the sign of Pisces. Now, if you've got anything at 9 degrees in Pisces, that could really wallop you, that could really like knock you off your feet. I'm not trying to worry you. I will talk about it on a sign by sign basis towards the end. My moon's at 9 degrees in the sign of Pisces. So I'm thinking, this is going to be an interesting energy. So yeah, there's a lot of things. I would say the first part of this is a lot more social and a lot more active. And then, this last week, I think we're a lot more reflective. There's a lot of things going on. And, if we wanted to look at it from the perspective of an ephemeris, this is an ephemeris that you can easily and freely download from astro.com, which I use quite a lot. In astro.com, you get the chance to download these ephemeris or ephemeres, and it shows you on a planet by planet basis the actual position that the planets are in on a month. You can look at it on a month by month basis. So here you can see at the start of the month, the sun is in Aquarius, and we've got Mercury, Venus and Mars in the sign of Capricorn. By the end of the month, it's Pisces, Aquarius. So the energy is really shifting, but it shifts like that every month, wherever the sun is by the next time we come round, he's moved on to another sign. And the inner planets, Mercury, Venus in particular, tend to move on a sign, provided there's no retrogrades going on. And you can see when these planets are changing signs. I've highlighted those. I've also put in where the new moon is and also where the full moon. I am doing separate videos for those, but you'll get a feel for that energy too. And you can also see if there's any big planetary changes with the outer planets, but there's nothing there. Now, what I have brought in as well, I've also highlighted this area here. So this is the true North Node, and this is Chiron. You see these are both very, very close together. They go exact at a particular point during the day. This is all set to midnight, by the way. This is London time. And then right at the bottom, which you just can't quite see, there's 3 little highlighted things that's showing the position of the Sun, Mercury and Saturn on the 28th. So, if you are new to astrology, you can start using the ephemeris to see the actual longitudinal position of the planets as they go through the zodiac, which is quite helpful. Anyway, on to the week by week breakdown. So in week 1, and this chart is literally for the 1st of Feb, I think at midday. I haven't put in any angles because, you know, you could be anywhere in the world and I don't want to prejudice it particularly. But I really wanted to get a feel for the planetary energies as they're building in week 1, and then on to week 2, 3, and 4. Now, the first thing that I really think is significant is Mercury moving into Aquarius on the 5th. So this is a snapshot from the 1st. And so you can just see Mercury's just here. On the 5th, he goes into Aquarius, then makes a conjunction to Pluto. Now, we've got 3 conjunctions with Pluto this month. So if you think Pluto has just transitioned into the sign of Aquarius, this is going to be the first conjunction of Pluto and Mercury in 2024, and so on and so forth. We've also got Venus that's going to make a conjunction with Pluto, and Mars later on. So the Pluto energy is very, very strong in the first part of February. If you think Pluto is all about transformation and getting us to face ourselves, and to consider where we might be letting go of a part of our personality. And then we've got, you know, February, like we've got Mercury, Venus, and Mars. They're all personal planets. So Mercury is about the mind, our communication, the way we process things. It's a little bit about our sociability and how quick we might want to work on things. And so having Mercury in a conjunction with Pluto could turn our thoughts very transformative. They could get a bit dark because Pluto does have a theme for the darkness. He's the god of the underworld after all. So that's an interesting one. So our thoughts are likely to be very penetrating, and our conversations could also get very penetrative, sarcastic, quite likely. Mercury, when he's in a conjunction with Pluto or Saturn and Uranus, it gets really gobby and kind of snippy. So watch out for that. We've also got Venus in a square with Chiron. So if you see Venus is here, Chiron's there. So, you know, this is on the 1st, but by the time the 5th comes along, Venus is well into that square, is exactly in the square, and consequently goes into a square with the North Node as well. So Venus, you know, our emotions, our ability to flow, our desire to be pleasing and collaborative, that is a little bit stressed out. You know, Venus in a square to Chiron, you know, may well focus on how unlovable she is. She may well, you know, because Chiron is very much about our wounds, what we're holding, all our old stories about ourselves. So you might find that, you know, the 5th is a day where we're not feeling ourselves, or maybe we connect into a pained version of ourselves, where we feel a little bit isolated, kind of unloved, and then feel a little bit snarky. So yeah, if you've got things going on, I advise you don't go and hang out with people that you feel undermined by, and possibly don't go visit relatives if it brings up stuff for you. Really, if you're going to do anything on, you know, around the 5th and 6th, I would absolutely recommend that you hang out with the best people, the people that you're okay to be vulnerable with, the people that you feel celebrated by, the people that you just don't mind if they see you at your worst, because it's a time when we're going to be working things out for sure. And like I say, Venus goes into a square with the true and the mean node, according to which one you use, between the 6th and the 7th. So again, there's an element of us working out what we need to do to feel very loved, to feel very flowing, to feel like we're connected to the generosity of life. Then I really, really like how this week ends, because Venus is in a trine to Uranus. Now, that really sorts it out. It's almost like we've been processing something in week 1. Towards the end of it, we start to feel like we're getting going again, and we might be a bit more spontaneous with our time, with how we share ourselves. And we might feel a lot more generous, excited. You know, life's a lot more pleasing from that perspective. So yeah, it's an interesting week. Now, during that time, we start with the moon in Libra. In fact, let me just get my paper version of my ephemeris, so I write all my notes on. So yeah, in that first week, the moon moves from Libra and ends the week in Capricorn, just at the beginning of Capricorn. So during that time, the moon's not actually really connecting to anything that's, one of the classical planets. These are actually asteroids I've put in. That's Pallas Athena and Ceres. However, the moon is making connections via opposition. So for instance, and square as well. So for instance, here, Venus is in a square with Mercury and Mars, which will also, like Mercury in squares with the moon, definitely makes us emotional in the way that we're talking and communicating. And also that square between the moon and Mars makes us a lot more fiery. Now, these are fleeting energies, like the moon moves very fast during the day. So at very much at the beginning of the week, we've got this sort of fieriness, which gives away for a kind of thoughtful snarkiness and insecurity. When Venus goes into the sign of Scorpio, she's also going to make an opposition to Jupiter and Uranus. The opposition with Jupiter, we tend to go a little bit far, so we might be a little bit too enthusiastic. That will be taking place on the 2nd of February. And the opposition with Uranus, where we tend to just be a little bit unrealistic and possibly a bit immature and a little bit too rash, that's around the 3rd. So as you can see, the moon is moving through this part. It's kind of I think I think the strongest moon movements tend to be, like the squares, the oppositions, but I really think the potency of a conjunction really sets the moon off and gets the planet working in a very sort of emotional and psychic way. So as this progresses, week 2, when the moon makes connections with all of these, this is going to be really quite potent. So let's have a look now at week 2. So we're into week 2, and as you can see, this is the chart for the 8th of February, and so all these are other things that are happening that week. As we're going into this, the moon is just in the tail end of Capricorn. The moon's actually making a very, very strong conjunction to Mars and Pluto, which is going to be a very sort of, I think it's going to give you a feel for how it might be on Valentine's Day when Mars and Pluto actually come together. The moon here is absolutely flavored, a bit like, for those of you that might cook with something like corn, the vegan or vegetarian version of meat, it picks up the flavors of the other ingredients around. So like here, the moon is absolutely, so your psyche is absolutely soaking up the energies of Mars here. So it's self-interest, vitality, this kind of vavavoom, this kind of irritability as well, this need to take action. And then this Pluto, this kind of dark, controlling, wanting to sort of like get involved in things and go deep, deep, deep. And so the moon is very, very I'm not going to say thoughtful because that makes it sound like it's kind. The moon here is absolutely in a place of deep feelings, like really strong feelings. You're likely to feel quite moved. And I would say irritability is probably the best description here. Sort of motivated and irritable, really wanting to get things moving as you're going into week 2. Now, thankfully, the moon moves quite fast and covers a good 13 degrees or so each day. And so as we go into the 9th, towards the end of the day on the 9th, the new moon is occurring right in the last hour of the 9th. So I think it will be on the 8th for people in America. But here we've got the new moon in Aquarius, which I'm going to talk about in another video. But the new moon is obviously quite an exciting time. It sets up a whole new set of energies. However, what you can see here is the sun is in a square to Uranus at this time. And so we've got this new moon energy, which is all very exciting, and it's topped off with this square to Uranus. Now, Uranus really shows us where we need to change something, where it may be something doesn't feel like it's flowing and working very well, and something snaps, breaks, changes, evolves. It's very spontaneous. It's quite sudden. In particular, when it's aspected by quick moving planets, for instance, the sun and the moon, Uranus is extremely unstable. But here it's a square. So squares usually involve some form of tension and frustration. So, it's not just going to snap like too suddenly. You'll feel the frustration of things building. I always think that, Uranus really gives us what we need to invent something. It gives us it's also a higher aspect of Mercury. So it's like the higher mind, so in that we might have this moment of genius where all of a sudden we're able to process the things that are frustrating, the things that aren't working. And then there's this feeling of something needs to snap, change, evolve, move. So yeah, this new moon has a lot of energy. And given that the sign of Aquarius is ruled by Saturn and Uranus, there is a very, very strong Uranian flavor. So right away, as we're going into week 2, we've got very strong emotions, very strong will, a real strong need to get things in control, which is interesting because Uranus really values independence. Really wants to be quite sovereign, independent, and yet part of the overall scheme of things. There's two very sort of conflicting and interesting sides to Aquarius, given that it's ruled by Uranus and also Saturn. The Saturn side of it really wants to create something equal and social, which is I guess why some people are talking about social credits and scores and things like that, where everybody's rated in the same way, everyone's got the same opportunities. So it's like we all want to fit into a scheme, with that sort of Saturnian Aquarius. And then the Uranus Aquarius, I think, is very maverick, doesn't want to be put in a box, really wants independence. So there's this really kind of, I think, slightly uncomfortable duality with the sign of Aquarius that doesn't quite fit and takes a bit of mental noodling around. You've got to really work your mind to get it to really understand it very well. I know some real sort of pioneering people who are deeply independent in their thinking and who also see that they're part of something. So the challenge here is how do you feel individual yet a useful part of society? And I think that's the big question. And so, at the time of this new moon, especially if you've got something around this point, like an angle or a planet, you're gonna really feel the energy of a need for change, a need to be part of something, but to have your distinct role within it. And where that's not happening, you're likely to feel this need to change something. So it's a very, very strong new moon. At that time as well, what I also really like is the sun is in a lovely trine with Vesta. Vesta is also about our most cherished intention and our core truth. We've also got this lovely south node connection with the sun, which is still ongoing, really reminding us of where we're coming from in this decision-making process. So really strong time. On the 10th, Mercury's in a square to Jupiter. So we've also got these personal planets will be making squares to Jupiter as they're going into Aquarius. Mercury's leading the way there. I think the squares to Jupiter between the personal planets, in particular Mercury, the Moon, and Venus, they're less tragic. They may get a bit clumsy at times because the Jupiter energy really inflates and inflames our process, whether it's thinking with Mercury, feeling with Venus, or being emotional with the Moon. Jupiter has a tendency to make things bigger, but it's also got a kindness really sort of fundamentally within that energy. So yes, our thinking might get a bit more rowdy with Mercury in a square to Jupiter, but it's a kind of kind rowdiness. We might get a little bit expanded in the way we're thinking and start to really build new ideas. So you may well find that you run away with yourself a little bit, and that's cool. And then towards the end of week 2, Mars then moves into Aquarius. So we're getting a whole new feeling in terms of how motivated we are. And then we've got that very, very strong conjunction with Pluto at 0 degrees in Aquarius. Again, starting a very strong energy. So obviously, while Pluto is in the sign of Aquarius, Pluto is going to be in the sign of Aquarius for 20 years. And Mars takes just over 2 years to do a lap of the Zodiac. Or 2 to 2.5 years. I can't remember the exact, but, Mars is going to make approximately 10 conjunctions. I don't know that for sure. I haven't checked it, but it will make approximately 10 conjunctions with Pluto in this Aquarius. And this will be the first one. So that's the whole new cycle of Mars and Pluto energy, because prior to that, Mars and Pluto, when they came together, were always in the sign of Capricorn for the last 15 years. So there's a whole new area of determination that's being sown, a whole new cycle that's going on. So that's worth thinking about. Now, obviously, Valentine's Day, you've got Mars and Pluto and Venus together. That's a very, very strong one. But again, we're likely to be quite moody because, Pluto does bring a moodiness and a desire to have things our way. Sure, it's super sexy. Don't get me wrong. Like all three of those are sexy, sensuous planets. But are we going to be pleasing, or are we going to be quite psychological, pathological? I think it's the second, it's the latter. So, yeah. I think like Valentine's Day is likely to be a very strongly felt day. Anyway, let's move on to week 3. So where is the moon as we're going into week 3? Let's have a look. So this is the chart for the 15th of February. So as you can see, the day before, like Venus, Pluto and Mars were all like tight together. There they are right at the start of week 3. In this week, things start to get really deep. So on the 16th, Venus moves into Aquarius, which is light-hearted. It's not so deep, it's light-hearted. But she instantly, like the day after, goes into her conjunction with Pluto. So we've had all three, Mercury, Mars and Venus at this point, have made a conjunction to Pluto. And I'm not sure if she made a conjunction to Pluto last year. I'd have to check that, but this will be one of the first conjunctions that she's made with Pluto in the sign of Aquarius, marking a whole new cycle for her. We've also got Mercury in a square to Uranus. So the week before we had Mercury in a square to Jupiter. Now Mercury's making a square to Uranus. And this is where we can get a bit snippy, very sarcastic. However, we come up with really great inventions. We have a very uniquely technical mind. We're able to work things out in quite a staggering way. It's quite disjointed feeling, thinking, by the way. It's not necessarily flowing. It's quite disjointed, the Mercury and Uranus energy. However, in that tension and in that frustration comes a sense of speed, invention, genius. But like I say, it's not very comfortable. But given that Venus is also in a conjunction with Pluto, things could get really stirred and motivated and moved quite quickly. So I like that. A couple of days later, the sun goes into the sign of Pisces. And on that day, we've got this really tight Chiron and North Node connection in the sign of Aries. Now, if you remember right at the start, I said this area here in your birth chart is likely to get really pounded over the next few months because, yes, we've got the North Node and Chiron together. And then later we are going to have the total solar eclipse on the 8th of April. We're going to have the sun and the moon and Chiron exactly together at 19 degrees, I believe, off the top of my head. That's really, really strong. And the North Node is just moments away. So this is an area, if you have something in this area, it's worth paying it some attention. Now, I have done a separate video about Chiron and the North Node in quite some depth. And I've given some sort of high level not a forecast, but more of a roadmap, taking you from this Chiron and North Node conjunction to the next one in 14 years' time. So we're really talking about your healing journey and role in society. So if that appeals to you, check out that video, because there's something there for you in terms of what it is that you've been working on. It's a very, very hard aspect to work through. Now, I got a taste of this. I got a bit walloped in January because the North Node actually went on my Chiron. I'm actually going through my Chiron return now. So having the North Node and Chiron connect exactly in my birth chart, it's really funny. I all of a sudden felt very disconnected, isolated. I put myself in isolation. I felt very cold, numb. It's like I couldn't access anything. And I felt so weepy. I just couldn't stop crying. I just felt pathetic. It's like the North Node is so much about our purpose and what we're giving to the world and how we're moving in the world. And are we on track and are we on the right direction? And there's a sense of our life making sense. There's this sense that, we know why we're here. We know what our karma is. And at that time, I just couldn't see it at all. I couldn't connect to it. I felt so disconnected and overwhelmed because I felt so off course. And of course, Chiron just reminds you of your most painful wounds. And at that time, literally earlier this month, I felt so useless. I felt absolutely, utterly useless. Like I couldn't do anything, and I had no real purpose in being here. So just watch out for that. Like if you have got a planet there, so for all of you going through your Chiron return, really pay attention. Don't let those thoughts get in, or allow yourself some time. It took me a good week or so to really get back on track. It's like, for me, this is how I experienced it. So I'm not talking about how you will experience it necessarily, but for me, it felt like a very deep, dark depression for a few days, followed by this sense of numbness either side. So, watch what's going on for you. If you've got your Chiron return, you may well experience it like that. But if you've got Mars there, if you've got Jupiter there, whatever it is, it's going to pick up the flavor of your personal planet or your angle, or look at where it's happening in your chart in terms of the house it's in. I mean, I will be talking a little bit about this in your monthly forecast, so stay tuned for that anyway. But yeah, it's definitely worth paying attention to, and like giving yourself a break when this aspect comes up, because it's very strong and quite confusing. So yeah, there's that going on. Yeah, so there you go. That's how I would advise you manage the North Node Chiron energy. Just go slowly with it, and not expect too much from you. But if you're really ready for a breakthrough, I certainly had a breakthrough after after my sort of self-imposed isolation. I felt so much better. All of a sudden, things got clear for me. But for me, I had to absolutely sit with the energy, not judge myself, though that was hard. Not push myself. I literally just stopped doing what I thought I needed to do. I just gave myself a massive break. And in that, things started to happen because, the North Node's involved. So there is an element of karma. There is an element of suggestion. There is an element of something just coming in that awakens something within us. So yeah, there you go. Some thoughts. Now, just so you know, this is exact on the February the 19th from the perspective of the true node. For those of you that use the mean node, the average North Node, that is in its conjunction on the 5th. So what you might want to do, if you're interested, is just notice when you're really feeling that energy. I personally think we're all feeling it. Empaths are starting to feel it come in already, because the North Node and Chiron have already been coming into a conjunction for a really long time. So we're already feeling that energy tighten. So I just think this whole period of time from the 19th right to the 5th we're sort of at its ground zero or epicenter. Anyway, let's have a look at, actually, just before I move on, me just find out where the moon is that day. I can't remember off the top of my head. Right, so the moon is at the end of Gemini, the beginning of Cancer, at that time of the North Node conjunction to Chiron. So yeah, if it's already in Cancer, like early degrees of Cancer, that's going to feel quite weepy. And at the end of Gemini, we may well feel a little bit stirred to talk about things. But anyway, let's move on. So as we go into week 4, that's on the 22nd, the moon is already in the sign of Leo and will actually go all the way around to the end of Libra towards the end of the week. So yeah, this is interesting because the moon is actually in opposition to Pluto, Mars and Venus as we start week 4. Now, this is one of these pressure cooking events. You know, it really does feel like we are emotional about other people controlling us, about not feeling we have enough power sexually, maybe not feeling like we have enough attraction or attention. And so it can be very isolating, and we feel a little bit defeated, I think, when, you know, the moon's in opposition in this way. It's important that we keep a perspective in terms of our emotions. And then on the 24th, we've actually got the full moon in Virgo at 5 degrees. So the moon will be here in opposition to the sun and also Saturn. Now, obviously, the moon is also going to be in opposition by default to Mercury too. So, you know, we've got these 3 planets all coming together. So if you think at the end of week 3, we had this particularly isolating energy coming up between the North Node and Chiron, you know, where we maybe feel a little bit numb, a little bit disappointed according to the hurts that we go through. And then a whole week later, Mercury, our way of thinking, is about to come out of Aquarius and go into the sign of Pisces. Now, Mercury in Pisces isn't very strong. You know, it's in its opposite sign. So Mercury is kind of fuzzy thinking here. Mercury gets quite emotional here. So we get really emotional thinking, unstructured thinking, and slightly depressive thinking. The sun in Pisces is a lot less strident, you know, it's a lot more delicate, a lot more gentle, a lot more global, you know, really wanting, like really feeling connected to everything. So we're thinking and we're being really, really feeling and psychic and spongy. And then we're also in contact with Saturn. Now, I really like the theories of transactional analysis, you know, like the ideas that we have a parental side to our persona, we have an adult side, and we have a childlike side. And astrologically, the moon represents our childlike side, the sun, our adult self, and Saturn, our parental self, like the person that tells us off, for instance. And so, you know, I really see that our adult and parental selves aren't really in a strong place in the sign of Pisces, you know, so we might feel quite weak, not very determined. This is really quite a low point in our thinking, in our ability to be critical thinkers, in our ability, like ordinarily Saturn and Mercury coming together would really make us feel quite concise and precise in the way we're thinking. And yet in the sign of Pisces, it's not really that strong. You know, so we're wanting to be determined and precise, and we're wanting to be able to see things, and yet our emotions are getting in the way, and the things that we're picking up from everyone else is slightly getting in the way. So it's a very interesting connection, and I think I'm probably going to do a video about it actually, because, you know, the 3 of these coming together is going to, it's a slow consideration of things. So yeah, this week is full of deep feelings, very strong feelings. So the full moon, obviously I'm doing a video about that, which you can see separately. but that's already getting the ball rolling. You know, it's kind of sowing the seeds from the 24th to the 28th that we are deep in some kind of mental crisis. We are really thinking it through. So that's why I said right at the start, the beginning of February is a lot more, let's go do stuff, because, you know, we've had Mercury, Venus and Mars all make a conjunction with the Pluto, which absolutely makes us quite determined, quite pathological, quite unstoppable, to have some level of power in the way we think, feel and move around and take action. So it's really quite determined at the start of February, and then as we get towards the end, it's almost like we've gone into, I don't know, like, I mean, obviously I've got moon in Pisces myself, so I am quite a feeling person. And, you know, over the course of my life, I've had these ups and some quite big downs. Though I'm always able to get myself up again, or have always managed to do that quite easily. But it's like we're having a bit of a downer at the second part of the week. And that's not necessarily a really bad thing. You know, I really want to make it clear. I know I talk about feel-good astrology and stuff. Actually, what I think is happening with week 2 and week 3 is, week 3 and week 4, is week 3 is bringing us into a space where we can clear the decks to create something new. But, you know, if we're trying to create something new whilst we're carrying on with our old patterns, we can't really see the fullness of our new start. So it's like, I think the way I'm sensing it is that week 3 is to get us to stop. It's getting us to slow down, stop, take stock of what is going on. And so in week 4, yes, we've got a sense of what was going on, what needs to stop. And it's a time when new ideas are coming up and we're gentle with ourselves. We're not quite sure. So we're getting lots of new ideas, lots of new thoughts, lots of new belief patterns. All these new things are coming up for us, but they're in their infancy. Like if we were to look at it from a tarot perspective, it's got, like, week 4 has got very much the page energy, which is, it's a new idea or it's a seed point. It's not necessarily going to lead anywhere. It will take a lot of nurturing and nourishing for it to grow. So really what I see with February is we are ending a story and getting ready to start a new one. And with these seed points that are coming up in week 4, I don't imagine them to get really deep roots until after April, because March and April are absolute germination points where things are going to start to take shape. They're going to start building in our minds first and then physically. So, you know, this is an absolutely powerful time of the year and a powerful time in our lives, you know, with the Pluto shift and all these different things happening. So, you know, the sum total, like how all this fits together in the context of astrology of 2024 is immense. February is an important month. So that's an overview of this month ahead. Now, I did want to say, obviously, in November, I did a Mars cazimi video. I also did a Pluto one just last week as well, or the week before. Now, the cazimi, I got picked up on this by somebody who obviously doesn't like my approach on trying to simplify things and make things really accessible. You know, they were asking me to ensure that I tell the true story. Now, they gave me a whole list of things that I must read and convey to people. And at some point, I'm going to record a video more about cazimis. But one thing that I did want to, one of the things that they were talking about in particular was the importance of recognizing that a planet comes together in a couple of different ways. So, you know, we've got I've got a couple of centimes here, because obviously I use euros here in Portugal. Don't know if you can see these actually. So, no, let me just take that off the screen. So I've got a couple of centimes. So if you imagine, I need something in the middle now, but you've got, like, from an astrological perspective, we're right in the center. Earth is in the center and everything appears to be spinning around us. That's how it appears in the birth chart. And so, you know, when you have planets going around the zodiac and meeting, they come into a conjunction. And then at some point, one of them will pass the other and two become one. So they look the same, and then they carry on their journeys. So this 2 becomes 1 is a conjunction, but it's also absolutely exact. And then they start to separate again. Now, with the whole idea of a cazimi is when something comes together, there are these measurements. So we talk in terms of degrees and minutes of arc. Now, a degree contains minutes of arc within it. And with the cazimi, it's said that once the other planet is in the heart of the sun, exactly within the heart of the sun, it's in a cazimi. And as it's approaching, it has to be within 17 minutes of arc to the exact position, and then 17 minutes of arc as it's leaving. So effectively, there's 34 minutes of arc where the cazimi is exact. 17 before, then the exact moment when they're absolutely together, and 17 minutes of arc as they disappear. So it's a really, really tight space of time. It's a moment where something new comes together. I guess, in terms of, as I'm seeing this, all I'm thinking about is a sperm and an egg, like this is a moment where, like, when does life start? And some people say, obviously, life starts when the baby is born. But in terms of sperm and an egg meeting, they are not alive until that moment where they connect. And that is like when the magic starts to happen and when things start changing. So, yes, so you've got the cazimi coming in this way. Now, there's something else that I didn't mention in my last video, but I mentioned in the comments and in the description. And that is when a planet is 8 degrees away from the sun, it's said to be combust. It's kind of, its energies aren't very pure. It doesn't express itself very well because the sun dwarfs it. Let's see if I've got a bigger coin, in fact. Not really. But ooh, I've got a big bell here. If we imagine this is the sun and this is the planet, at sort of 8 degrees away, it's really kind of drowned out by the sun's immense power. But then when it goes into this cazimi, just like here, its power gets completely amplified. And then it comes out of the cazimi, and then it's another 8 degrees the other side. It's combust. It's kind of burnt out by the sun. So that's the thought of it. And what somebody mentioned to me, I know this hasn't got anything to do with February so much, but I think this is important to add in. So what I've described here is the combustion that happens across the zodiac. And, so we can monitor the degrees. Now, let me just, so this is, there are lots of different ways of calculating the position of a planet. So when I'm talking about the astrology and the positions, I'm using the longitudinal position of each of these planets and asteroids that I put in. So we are talking in terms of longitude, like this plane, and them coming together. But planets are also at different relative heights to each other. So you might have the sun here and Saturn up here, and they come into a conjunction. We see this as a conjunction because they're in the same place across this latitude. This is very difficult to explain with a pen, a bell, and 2 centimes. Can't believe I'm doing this, but never mind. Hopefully you get it. You can obviously skip this because I've put chapters in. So they come together across the longitude and they appear at the same position. So this is the natal chart data on the day when the sun and Saturn come into the same position. And you can see they're at 9 degrees, 46 minutes of arc. And then we've got seconds of arc beyond that. So that's 9 degrees, 46. These are absolutely in a longitudinal cazimi. Now, what somebody was saying to me was, it has to be an absolute longitudinal and latitudinal cazimi. Now, I guess that's what a total solar eclipse is, where you've got the sun and the moon and they come together, not just on this plane, but they come together this way as well. So that's what you've got with a total solar eclipse. It kind of disappears. It's an absolute cazimi, But anyway, astrologically, you can also test and check the latitude and the declination, that's something else, but you can check the latitude as well. So what I wanted to share with you in saying that is on February the 28th, there is actually the Sun Saturn cazimi, and the Sun and Saturn coming together for a whole new cycle ahead. So, you know, what I mean by that is the Sun and Saturn, when they come together, you've got the Sun's energy, which is how we are our own person, how we are our own individual. You know, it's about our ego, our personality. And then Saturn is about how we are responsible, how organized are we, how disciplined are we. And so the Sun and Saturn coming together is a cycle of discipline, as far as I can see, a cycle of adulting ourselves. You know, we are becoming adults and acting like adults. So I really see that the Sun, Mercury and Saturn, because obviously Mercury and Saturn will make an exact conjunction and start a new cycle, which you could say is a cycle of thinking with discipline, like disciplined thinking cycle and a disciplined being cycle is all starting on the February the 28th. It's actually, even though they're in the sign of Pisces, which I've said, you know, these guys aren't very strong in that sign. It's still a very potent time. And yes, we might be very thoughtful. And if we're not very disciplined, and we're not very gentle with ourselves, we could totally lose that energy. But I think it's a potent point that we can absolutely expand on and take into the year ahead. So yeah, a very, very strong time indeed. Anyway, let's now actually have a good look at a breakdown between all of the different ascendants on a sign by sign basis. So what I'm going to do, just in case you don't know what your ascendant is, I always put this in. You know, these forecasts coming up are absolutely about your ascendant. But like I said right at the start, you can use it for your sun as well if you choose to, or even your moon. But if you want to find your ascendant, go to astro-seek or -seek.com. And you need to go here to the free horoscopes, down to ascendant, click enter, put in your time, place and date of birth, click enter, and it will tell you what your ascendant is. Pretty sure everyone that's watching here will already know their ascendant, but anyway. Okay, so the first of the forecasts for February 2024 is Aries. So Aries ascendant, if you're there, this is for you. So what I'm looking at in this month ahead are these 5 potent times. I've distilled the astrology of next month into these moments. So we've got this red dot here representing the conjunctions that are being made to Pluto. So first of all, we've got Mercury, then we've got Mars, then we've got Venus. Mercury's on the 5th. Mars is making this conjunction with Pluto on the 14th and Venus on the 16th. So the first sort of 11 days, it's an 11-day window where Pluto is being activated over and over and over again. And what this is really saying to me is that this area of your chart, Aries ascendant, which is about the 11th house, it's about friends, it's about associates, it's about the larger networks, the global vision that you might subscribe to. It's everything that is very global and connected for you is being activated a lot in this month ahead. So starting with Mercury on the 5th, you know, your views, your thoughts, your ideas on life and the things that you might be getting worked up about are very much of a collective and global flavor. You know, there's a very strong switch in your mind to globalism and global activities and what that might mean to you, like your relationship with the wider world. As Mars goes there on the 14th, so Valentine's Day, and Venus is very close nearby, you're likely to want to take action in some way. So that's on the 14th. You're feeling really kind of fired up. Now, if you've already got something existing going on, you might find, like, for instance, if you've got something going on with friends or within the networks that you are existing within, you might find that in early February, you're starting to think in a new way and wanting to take action from the 14th. By the 16th, when Venus comes in, your feelings about the groups and energies that you're existing within are very, very strong and active. So this window between the 5th to the 16th is really activating everything to do with being global, being connected, the goodwill between you and others. And also, I think the 11th house is very much about co-creation. So what are you co-creating with life, with the world, with your community, and all that jazz? So it's a very, very strong and potent time. So for instance, for those of you that might work in industries where there's great big networks, or in marketing, or something that really spreads its fingers out quite considerably, this could be a very powerful time for you. So, you know, use this, make this work for you is my suggestion. Now, on the 9th, we've got the new moon. It's also square Uranus. So we've got the sun and the moon here, activating and highlighting this area of your chart, the 11th house. And we've got Uranus down here in your 2nd house. Now, this is an interesting square. This is an interesting sort of tension and frustration. So it feels like you're wanting to take more action, more clear action in terms of, again, to do with friendships and networks. How do you want to be supported? How do you want to receive? How do you want to benefit from all of the relationships that you've been nurturing in your life? I think receptivity and receiving is a really strong keyword, because the 2nd house is obviously about your money and how things might work there. So you may well have a big idea. Now, this Uranus point here is very strong. Anything that is building up right now, in particular at the time of the new moon, could really come into fruition around the time of the Jupiter and Uranus conjunction at the end of April, around the 21st. Is it 21st of April off the top of my head? I can't remember, but around that time. So you might also, like, whatever plans you're hatching right now, in terms of you and your networks, and the people and the energies that just feel very good for you, you might want to consider how they might come into being, how you might want to bring them forwards, and really have April as one of these kind of completion dates, or the end of phase 1 date, or, you know, the launch date, or whatever. So, you know, I see that there is this stepping stone, this window of energy, and it can build up from now right until the end of April. We've got the Chiron conjunct North Node in the 1st house. Now, this is quite a difficult one, though it doesn't necessarily need to be difficult. Now, I spoke about the Chiron conjunction in the North Node earlier in this video in part 1. I've also recorded a really long and concise and sort of deep and explorative video about Chiron and the North Node that's just been released as well. And in that, I give a very full account of how Chiron and the North Node are working for you, and have been working with you and for you since the start of COVID, back in March 2020, and how that's going to take you on a journey until 2038. So it's a really big overview of Chiron in your life. But right now, in terms of this month ahead, what you might want to watch out for is the impact that your identity is playing in your life. So where does it feel tight in your life to be yourself? Where have you got old pains that you are that are very much associated to your body, your identity, the reputation that you've got for being you? It's almost like identity politics blown up in such a way that it becomes painful. You know, what I really feel is that something about the persona that you've built up for yourself is now feeling tight around you and almost too painful to bear. Is it that you haven't let go of the past and you've still got old iterations of yourself within your persona now? I don't know, but it feels like a very sort of deep and personal moment where you might actually, around the time that this is coming into being, from the 19th of February right the way through to the 5th of March, it might be a time when you want to retreat into yourself a little bit and work out what it is that you like about your identity, and work out what it is about your identity that is bringing pain or attracting pain to you. You know, is there a part of you where you're turning in on yourself? You know, is there are you being critical of a part of yourself and that's causing you pain? Whatever is going on right now is very much triggered by the image and the sense of what being you represents. I would absolutely also tie this in with the full moon energy on the 24th, and then the subsequent Sun, Mercury and Saturn conjunction, which again I spoke earlier about in part 1. But it's a very, very potent time, but also a time when we could go in on ourselves a little bit. And for you, you know, what's building here in the last week of February, Aries ascendant, is the Sun, Mercury and Saturn coming together in your 12th house, which is a particular part where, like, the 12th house is known amongst other things as a place where we kind of unravel. It's the place of us coming apart. It's the place where our fears, our insecurities, and all of our old memories kind of reside. It's like the great big unconscious mind, not only just your unconscious mind, but it's also a representative of the great unconscious of the whole of humanity. If you think the first house is very much about the start of your journey, you know, the first house is like your birth, your body, your persona, what people know about you. And then all these different houses in life, they sort of take you right the way round. And if you were to look at this as a timeline, the 12th house is your demise. It's as you are coming away from your personality, as you're detaching from your ego, as you're detaching from the persona that you spent your whole life building up. So in many respects, it's like the death of you, or the death of your ego. It's a place of unraveling and letting go of it all and recognizing it's all story. But when things go through our 12th house, we often feel quite isolated. We want to take a bit of time for ourselves. In fact, we need a bit of time for ourselves, but we need to do it in such a way that we're not picking on ourselves. When I was going through my, when the North Node went on my, Chiron recently, one of my close, I think it's my husband, in fact, said, when you're isolating yourself, Louisa, you're picking at your feathers. So you don't want to do that. You know, you want to make sure that if you are taking time to reflect and consider what life is bringing you and how you might want to move forwards for the rest of 2024, you might want to do it in more positive ways, you know, like journaling, dream work, meditation's a great one, yoga's a great one. Anything that's nutritive and nourishing is really, really helpful. Suffice to say, you are going through a transition in this month ahead. And in particular, I would also say March and April are pretty strong times as well, because this point here is really, really highlighted, showing that there are ongoing identity issues and ongoing things to do with your identity, and, you know, removing the sadness from your identity or understanding it from a different perspective. So this last week in particular is bringing up a lot in terms of your physical health, which is at the time of the full moon, and your mental health for the rest of the week. So Aries, this is an interesting month for you. You know, I think the first part of the month is very sort of active and very much about how you're connected in the world and what that means to you, and just how far you can reach when you're co-creating with others. And then right at the end of the month, you are a lot more insular and a lot more reflective, which, you know, doesn't feel quite so much like the old Aries ascendant energy that, you know, you are known for. But if you can relax into it and just know that this is, you know, part of your cycle, this is part of your journey, and as you give yourself some space, you'll come back refreshed and renewed, then that will be very helpful. This is a very interesting time for you, to the level that you can go into yourself without judgment, and with kindness and gentleness. I think March and April and May will be so much more successful for it. A little bit of reflection here and creating space for yourself and looking after yourself will really, really help you in the next few months. So anyway, Aries Ascendant, I hope this is helpful for you. And I hope you have a lovely month, and check in again next month. Also, if you find the whole idea of Chiron and the conjunction with the North Node useful, then please do check out my other videos, which I think will offer a helping hand. But anyway, lots and lots of love to you, and catch you next month. Bye for now. So we're on to Taurus. Sorry. Let's have a look at what's coming up for you, Taurians. So again, I'm looking at 5 very specific things about this month ahead and the astrology that really catches my eye. The first thing that, the first couple of things I want to mention are really around your 10th house, because at this time of year, for anyone with a Taurian ascendant, as the Sun and possibly Mercury, Venus and Mars are in the sign of Aquarius, what tends to happen is your attentions are very much focused on how you are standing in the world, how you are being perceived as a success, how much gratitude and recognition are you getting, and I think in many respects, how are you being a responsible person? You know, the 10th house is very much about authority and power as well. So there's a lot going on there. And given that it has a flavor of power, it's very interesting. Obviously, right now, you've got Pluto right here. And, you know, if you want to know more about that, I've done a few videos on Pluto, but my most recent one could be quite helpful to you. But in this 11-day window from the 5th to the 16th of February, we've got Mercury on the 5th making a conjunction to Pluto. Then we've got Mars on the 14th of February making a conjunction to Pluto. And then we've got Venus finally on the 16th making a conjunction to Pluto, all between 0 and 1 degrees. So this is a very potent set of energies. Now, Pluto is about control and power and deeply facing ourselves. It's also very much about a new start and like the death of the old. So what I really like about this for you as an opportunity is Mercury is powering up your mind when it comes into connection with Pluto. You know, it's really giving you an opportunity to really see insightfully into the way you're making your living, the way you are helping people with your power to be responsible. You may well be thinking in terms of how can I have greater levels of influence? So there's some very strong new thoughts coming up for you. When Mars comes in there and onto this very potent point in your chart, you're likely to feel this rush of power and this rush of a need to be in power. Because, I mean, this is the top of the chart for you. You know, this is a really strong place where your feelings of greatness, your feelings of ambition are likely to be really sparked substantially. So you might want to temper that a little bit. If you're around timid people, they might be a little bit scared when you get out your great big superhero, powerful master of the universe cape. But, you know, this is still a very good time to plan something really big and to make a bold, new, courageous move forwards. When Venus moves in here as well, you're likely to realize the power of your sexual magnetism and how far that goes to raise awareness of you or to spread knowledge of you, you know, for people to see you. I guess what I'm saying here is there's a powerful new way that you're being perceived in the world as a successful person. So there's a lot to be said for that. Given that you've got Uranus and Jupiter going through your first house, and that later on in April, at the end of April, there's this lovely conjunction here. There are some really strong opportunities for you to move ahead in this year. So I would say this is a very formative month for you to make some very purposeful decisions, ask yourself some deep and searching questions. It's almost time to start building a plan to move you from here to the end of April and then beyond. But this particular period of time is very, very focused and can really get things moving for you. Around the 9th, there is also, and this is linking into what I was just saying, there's the new moon, which is also in a square to Uranus. So you've got the sun and the moon here, and also Mercury, Venus and Mars. Oh, sorry, Mercury and, yeah, just Mercury. Mars and Venus come a little bit later. But, you know, there's definitely an Aquarian theme going on, all highlighting your 10th house. So this new moon powering up the part of your chart about career and reputation and being seen. You know, it's a new start for you. Now, the fact that it's frustrated, you know, it's in this square to Uranus, is giving it a lot more energy, a lot more pep and spark. So be open to being inspired about your career. You know, ask the most outrageous mentors for guidance. You know, if you've got an idea, speak to people who are high achievers, who are unconventional and eccentric. Get an eccentric mind view, because that will really take you outside of the box. And you don't have to go completely outside of the box, but you might just need a little bit of spontaneous thinking to really be able to pull this off. But I do see this as being really, really dynamic. Now, when we're going into the last part of February, things are changing. So the first 2 weeks are very sort of upbeat and dynamic. The last 2 weeks are a lot more thought-provoking. So let's put this into context. So first of all, I've spoken earlier about the Chiron conjunction to the North Node, which is starting on the 19th, and it's still very exact around the 5th of March too. Now, this point is in your 12th house. Now, Chiron has been in your 12th house for years. It's been there since 2018. So it's not a new energy. And yes, you've done a lot of soul searching, but it's really coming up to be recognized now. It's like whatever you've been learning about yourself from 2018, about your weaknesses, your strengths, your fears, the things that hold you back, where you self-sabotage. It's time to let go of these. It's time to actually kind of complete on a lot of things. Really, this conjunction with the North Node is creating a clearing for you to really move forward substantially. But it's in the 12th house. So you probably are going to want a little bit of time to yourself, to come into yourself, to give yourself a space to be nourished and to be kind. Now, what is adding into this is that whilst this is all going on, we've also got this area here with the Sun, Mercury, and Saturn coming into an alignment in your 11th house. Now, the 11th house is about networks, friendships, being part of groups. It's very much about our support systems, in particular in a very social way. It's about our co-creations. So you may find that there's a crossover between these two. So maybe some of your self-sabotage, maybe some of the things that spark fear and insecurity in you are about where you're sharing your energies and where you're creating with other people. Is it to do with not being good enough? I don't know, but there's something going on. And in this last week in particular, the full moon in Virgo in the 5th house is actually, as full moons go, it's not quite, it's not as difficult for you, Taurian ascendants, as it is for other people. But it's likely to bring up some anxiety in terms of the things that you're doing on your own, the things that you're creating, the things that you're powerful about and purposeful, the way you like to use your creativity, the way you like to have fun and experience joy is working in opposition to what you've created with friends, with networks, with societies and organizations. It could even be that your joy, the way you experience joy, is somehow going against a global narrative, because the 11th is it could also be translated into being a global vision. So with the Sun, Mercury, and Saturn in this area, it almost feels like there's something to integrate for you, which again may well come back to the insecurities that Chiron are representing. So just in this last week or two, I would, in particular this last week, I think it's really important to just give yourself some time and to work through where that integration next needs to take place. Where are you feeling split right now? Do you want joy? Or do you want tempered joy so that you keep everyone else happy? It feels like a very strong balancing act for you. But anyway, that's just some thoughts for you in terms of the month of February in 2024, Taurus Ascendant. I hope that's helpful. If you do want a much deeper look at Chiron and the North Node in terms of the journey that you're on, I do not so much a forecast, but more of a blueprint roadmap looking at where Chiron and the North Node were in their last square, which was at the time of the start of COVID, where that was in your chart, how that has evolved. So, what hurts and difficulties have you experienced since COVID to where you are now, and how that's likely to go for the next 4-year period to the next Chiron North Node square. And then until we get to the next Chiron North Node conjunction. So this is like a 14-year forecast, essentially, or an 18-year forecast, actually, from 2020 to 2038. So if you do want some more knowledge about that, then please do check out my Chiron conjunction North Node video. But anyway, lots and lots of love to you. Good luck with February and hopefully catch you next month. Bye for now. So on to Gemini. Let's have a look at the energies there for you. So in terms of the Gemini ascendant and February 2024. I really see this as the playground. The playground, like you're in recess at the moment because things are going to get a lot more interesting for you later on in the year. I mean, you've got Jupiter coming into your first house at the end of May, and that's going to be a time when things start to move very, very rapidly. So in many respects, I see that what's going on for you right now is the preparation, a bit like you're sowing the seeds in the garden, but it's not really time for you to tend to the garden because the plants haven't come up yet. So you could be a bit playful in the way that you might choose to run this month. I mean, this is a very big month for a lot of people. But a lot more playful, a lot more wistful, a lot more dreamlike for you and your ascendant. So I'm looking at February 2024 from the perspective of these 5 key points or areas of your chart. The first 2 weeks are very much lighter and more directed and a lot more I say fun and easy. The last 2 require a little bit more thought, a little bit more thinking, possibly a little bit of soul searching. You might naturally feel like you want to be a bit more isolated around that time. But let's explore this in much greater detail. So there's an 11-day window of opportunity between the 5th and the 16th of February, where we've got Mercury, Mars, and Venus making a conjunction with Pluto. Now, if you're interested in Pluto's effect in your life, you might want to check out my Pluto video, which I released, I think, 10 days ago now, where I'm looking at Pluto and Aquarius from your perspective, from your ascendant. And that's giving you quite a lot of ideas of how that's going to develop over the next 20 years. But essentially, we've got Mercury coming into a conjunction, which is giving you a chance to activate the Pluto energy in terms of your mind and your thinking, your communication. So it's really getting that transformational flavor into your communication. And this is in your 9th house of experience. So your 9th house experience is about adventure. It's about breadth. It's about broadening everything. It's about learning the context of things. So, you might be exploring spirituality, religion, politics. That's a huge topic for so many people right now, and world affairs and culture and all that jazz. But as Mercury comes into this area, makes a conjunction with Pluto, your ability to zone in on it and go deep into thought on this is legendary. It just absolutely sparks up. It's almost like Mercury is obviously your ruling planet, and it being in the 9th house, it's not typically comfortable in the 9th house. It's less concise, and the 9th house is so broad. But this is a real sort of revelationary time for you. This is allowing you to think in stories rather than facts. It's allowing you to be very, very different from the usual Gemini ascendant. I really like this. And then as Mars follows on the 14th on Valentine's Day, you get this very strong call to action to start taking action on what you're learning. So it feels like you're learning new things, you're mulling it over for about 9 days, and then you're taking action. So this is kind of exciting. So it might be that, like, for 9 days, you're learning something, you're reading a book or you're chatting, and then you think, I'm going to take some action now. What kind of action do you take in the 9th house? It might be a long trip. It could be something that's helping you to go even deeper. You might be about to embark on something deep in terms of studies and writing or something like that. But there's a need for you to take action. And then Venus coming in here just on the 16th of February, 2 days later. And that's the 3 of them coming in. So it's your mind, your body, and now your soul or your heart. It's the inspiration. As Venus comes in, the heart is activated to work very deeply, very purposefully, and very courageously and determinedly, because Pluto, on your goal of understanding your role in the world and the impact that everything has. So it's a huge time, and you can be very playful in it. So I do think this is a time when your whole mindset is shifting quite substantially. It's quite exciting. Then we've also got the new moon that's taking place in this time. So we've got the sun and we've got the moon here. In your 9th house and sign of Aquarius, which is also ruled by Uranus, one of the planets. And your Uranus is showing up in the 12th house. It's in a square, an almost exact square to the new moon. So any new any new opportunities that you're wanting to get busy on, to do with like broadening your life and having a great big adventure, there's this real sort of sense of frustration that you need to do it now. If you don't take action now, when will you? You know, Uranus here in the 12th, it's bringing up so much intuition. It's giving you a real talent for knowing what you need. It's like this sense of knowing. Is it telepathic? Is it, do you see things in signs and symbols? I don't know, but there is this sense that if you don't take action now on your new big leap forwards, that you're going to miss this opportunity. So yeah, be aware of that. You are going to feel quite rushed to get things done in this first 2 weeks. And then the tone changes somewhat. So around the 19th, we've got the Chiron North Node conjunction, and this is part of a much longer cycle. So from the conjunction between Chiron and the North Node until the next one, you know, there's I think 14 years and 8 months from this one until the one in 2038. It's a whole cycle of experience where you're healing yourself to reveal your true nature, your true purpose. But anyway, on the 19th of February, the energy of your true purpose and what you need to clear to be able to reveal that true purpose to yourself, it's becoming very real and sort of in your face. Around the 19th, you know, this is in your 11th house. And this 11th house of experience is about your friends, your contacts, your experience of all things that are shared, your shared vision, the things you're creating with others. It's all being reviewed from a new perspective. You might find that you've got some really deep-seated hurts and upsets in terms of how accepted you are, what happens if you have different thoughts to the collective, have you been bullied? Like Chiron in the 11th really can bring up issues of not feeling accepted and being sort of isolated or shunned. So, you know, there's a lot going on there. So if you're starting to feel that Chiron North Node pain, which may well come as a sense of numbness initially, or a need to just lick your wounds, like go off and have a bit of time to yourself, the focal point may very well be about how you are able to live your life within the realms of a global vision. You know, the co-creation that the world is creating. You might find that the hurt and pain that you experience is because you think everyone else that's co-creating with you are idiots. You know, you might be like, oh, why are they all wanting to create this? You know, this is obviously not right, you know. So it's very much about being at odds with what's going on within the global narrative. So I really wish you some joy and peace in that. Now, while this is going on, in the last week, we've also got the full moon in Virgo, which is activating this part of your chart. And it's in opposition to the sun here. And later on, the sun is joined by Mercury and Saturn. So there's this big conjunction at 9 degrees in the sign of Pisces, which is really working on the full moon energy. So it's like on the 24th, there's this feeling of the 4th and the 10th houses being activated. You know, there's this sense of emotional belonging at home, the yearning to be feeling safe, to be feeling protected. And yet there's this feeling that you have to be strong in the world. You have to stand strong. And the tension between, you know, I need to be in the world, but actually I want to be at home is quite difficult. Then as this week progresses, there's more energy or more awareness about how you stand in the world, how you make terms with being here. And the sun and Mercury and Saturn in this conjunction are quite, I think, sad, especially in the sign of Pisces. There may be a little bit of confusion as to how you stand in the world. There's some things to work out. You know, it feels like right now you need to be disciplined in the way you're thinking, in terms of how you make a stand in the world, how you show up. So again, this last week feels like there's a lot to work out on an individual basis. It's not impossible. I do explain this energy much more in part 1. which I think will be helpful to you. And if you're interested in learning more about the overall cycle between Chiron and the North Node and its impact that it's having in your life, in particular over the next 14 years, which sounds like a long way away, but it's like, almost like a roadmap for your level of purpose. Like, what's one of your gifts that is coming up over the next decade or so? If you're interested in that, then I've also published a video about Chiron in a conjunction to the North Node. So enjoy that. But anyway, I hope that's helpful for you, Gemini. Like I said, what's happening in February is really you're clearing space because things are getting more exciting for you from the month of May as Jupiter approaches your first house. So anyway, enjoy this month, make the most of it, and hopefully I'll see you next month. Bye for now. So on to the energies of Cancer. So we've got Cancer ascendant, and in this month ahead, even though I've got quite a lot of stuff to talk about here, where I'm really focusing is this Chiron conjunction and with the North Node in your 10th house. Like, the 10th house is an angular house. It's a house where a lot of energy is stored. Like it's about how we show up in the world. Are we a good source of authority? How authority seems to us. Very much about our career. Do we have a solid reputation? Are we people grateful for the things we do or not? How am I doing? We often, the 10th house really shows how we feel competitive, against our peers. How do we show up in comparison, in competition to our peers? Are we doing well? It's a whole load of things going on. So this catches my eye. And I'm also very aware of the moons, because obviously the moon's your ruling planet. And for the month of February 2024, we've got the new moon, which is here in the sign of Aquarius in a square to Uranus. In the 8th house. The 8th house is another place where we experience a lot of transformation, but it's not necessarily comfortable. And then we've got the full moon in your 3rd house. So how am I going to piece this together? Okay, right. So here's how I think it's going to go for you, Cancer ascendant. The first 2 weeks in particular are very, very powerful, and they are about opening your mind to new stories about yourself. This is about how you can create a much better context for yourself, how you can create more freedom for yourself, and how you can create the opportunity to move from one stage of life to another within a month. Now, obviously, real change takes years, not just days, but you can start to make different decisions about yourself, which will have a knock-on effect. And obviously, each time you start to make the new decision and you make it again and you make it again, the potential for your change gets stronger and stronger. So this is a deeply transforming month. And the window of opportunity between the 5th and the 16th is strong, so there's this 11-day opportunity where Mercury, Mars, and Venus all make a conjunction to Pluto. Now, Pluto has just moved into this area of your chart, and it's really already starting to bring up this rumbling of things got to change. It's like you could have a soundtrack in the back of your head about changing. These times are changing. Things are going up a gear. You're changing track. There's this feeling of leaving one stage of life behind and moving forwards in a new way. Now, when Mercury, Mars, and Venus make this connection with Pluto, you're making this transformation real. It's really touching you, because these are the personal planets. Mercury is about the way you think. Mars is your body and your vitality, your determination, your ability to take action, physical action. And Venus is about your heart. So to me, I see that it's mind, body, and soul and heart that are coming into this transformative place in your chart. So how are you going to be using this energy is my big question to you, Cancer ascendant. So, on the 5th, there's this stirring, this new thinking that there's a change, there's a new possibility for you. How can it get any better than this? You want to be using this incisive, penetrative way of thinking to explore and expand all possibilities. Ask yourself the most searching questions that you can. Find a fantastic coach or mentor around you to feed back to you what you're doing. You might find it useful to record your voice as you're talking to yourself. You might find journaling really, really helpful. The 8th house is a place of magic, but it's also a place of secrecy. And a place that's very, very psychic and often just really lives in our heads because, I always see the 8th house as being a place of birth, life and death, and also the values that we share with other people. And of course, any shared values could be financial, but they can also be guilt, shame, blame, anger. It's a place of judgment. So you are being called upon, you've been given this opportunity to clear away a load of old judgments about yourself, to clear away a load of old actions that you wanted to take, but maybe are no longer valid. Maybe they've expired. This is a chance to clear away lots of heart associations that you've had with other people that maybe you just need to let go of. Say goodbye to old lovers. You don't have to phone them up and say sorry or goodbye or we're done. But you can do it etherically. You can do it in your mind. You can do it in your heart. You can create a ritual. But I see this as a big letting go phase for you. Very powerful. And in the middle of this, we've got the new moon in this area. So you've got the sun and the moon, and they are absolutely in a square to Uranus in the 11th house. Now, this is quite important because this square is giving you the frustration to do it. And it might be that you need to make these changes even if the people in your life aren't going to be doing them with you. You might be needing to make changes even if you don't feel the support from others. Uranus here has been changing the way you've received support from friends. And yes, you've probably got a lot more eclectic friends, interesting friends, eccentric friends, technical friends. You've probably got friends now that have come in from a global shared vision that you hold, that maybe the people around you that you grew up with didn't, so you have got a whole new bunch of people around you. But the tension here for you to make a new start is, I think, really coming from you needing to do it on your own. And your ability to take some leadership for yourself. Like if you think of Cancer, the Cancer ascendant, the moon is apparently reflecting the light of the sun. So at some level, you're in a place of projection. You need the energies of other people to be able to shine your own light. But maybe in this month ahead, actually, all you need to do is find a way to shine out yourself without the need for other people. So I'm interested in the possibilities and how that might work for you. So please do write me below and let me know how you think you might be doing that. Now, because I'm curious. Towards the last part of this month ahead, the focus is really on this 10th house as Chiron comes into the conjunction with the North Node. You are really questioning your effectiveness, how likable you are, why you haven't got more power, how you can spread more influence, how you can be more important, how you can have more status, more security, and all of that jazz. So there's a lot going on there. I would really advise that you don't take yourself too seriously at that point. Like, don't do a downer on yourself. It's not going to help. It's okay to identify weaknesses in your strategy, but don't use it as a stick to beat yourself with. That would be really quite tragic. Because in the following week, whatever you describe about yourself and diagnose about yourself could be really helpful. On the full moon, your attention is very much about what you're getting from your local community and your sense of belonging. There's also a very strong energy, I think, describing what you know about the world, what you know about feelings, what you have revealed to yourself. And the tension is that there's a lot of things that you don't know that you want to know. And it's almost like you might choose to ask yourself this question in the last part of the month. What do I need to know that I don't yet know, that if I know is going to expand my life, change my life, transform my life, and give me much bigger vistas? In the last couple of days of February, you've got the Sun and Mercury and Saturn in a conjunction at 9 degrees in the sign of Pisces. Now, this is interesting. Mercury's not so happy in the sign of Pisces. Saturn's not very strong in the sign of Pisces. However, you've got the energy of discipline, of thought and of ego coming together. So there is, I think, as you go through this month, how you end up at the end of this month is that you're forming a plan of how you can expand. And to do that, you need to understand and identify what you don't yet know, but need to know. So anyway, I hope all of those ideas and impressions that I've put into this reading are useful to you, Cancer Ascendant. If you did want a much broader view of how Chiron and the North Node are working to help you find your purpose over the next 14 years or so in the next Chiron North Node cycle, then please do listen to my Chiron North Node video. There'll be more tips there and quite a big roadmap. But anyway, sending you lots and lots of love for this month ahead. Hope you have a great month and look forward to seeing you next month in March. Anyway, lots of love to you. Bye for now. And we're on to Leo. So let's have a look at this Leo Ascendant and what's coming up for you in this month ahead, because this time of year is an interesting one for you because there's so much in your opposite sign of Aquarius. And obviously, excuse me, in the last week, Pluto just went into your opposite sign. It's dancing in between Capricorn and Aquarius, to be honest. It will finally go into your opposite sign of Aquarius in November of this year. But yes, all of a sudden, a lot of attention is in your opposing sign. So it's not necessarily a comfortable position for you. So let's see how February is going to develop for you. So, I'm going to need to stop. I think I need to have a coughing fit. Excuse me. Okay, so Leo, I am back now to absolutely do this reading for you. So in this month ahead then, I've distilled it down into these 5 key points I think are of interest. The first 2 really have to do with my first comment, that it feels like there's a lot of energy in this month ahead that is working contrary to your sign of Leo or your ascendant sign of Leo. So we've got Pluto, we will have Mercury, Mars and Venus all cross into the sign of Aquarius on the 5th, the 14th and the 16th of February. Each of those making a conjunction with Pluto, which is going to be very powerful, very much associated with partnerships. And I'll talk through that in a second. Then we've also got the new moon, which is the sun and the moon in the sign of Aquarius, making a square to Uranus in the sign of Taurus. Now, of course, Leos are fixed signs. And so we've got this fixed sign energy here. We've got fixed sign energy here. This is a time that's really strong for you because we've got a lot of energy in your 7th house and also your 10th. So anyway, let's uncover this a little bit more. So when Mercury and then Mars and then Venus come into a conjunction with your Pluto, it's like we have the mind, the body and the heart, or mind, body, soul, all coming in to be activated by the Pluto energy in Aquarius in your 7th house. So what does that mean? Well, Pluto in Aquarius for you, I described it actually in my Pluto video, which if you haven't seen already, I released about 10 days ago, and it gives a forecast for you for the year ahead. But the Pluto energy is about transforming your relationships and transforming your relationship to your relationships. Like, how have you seen your relationships so far in your life and how have they worked for you? Are you ready for a new form of relating to others in your life? Maybe in a way that's less personalized, maybe that's a little bit more based on freedom, maybe based more on not being so attached or being attached in different ways. So when Mercury comes into a connection with Pluto, it feels like you've got a whole new way of looking at relationships, looking at your winning formula, like what's working, what's not, and also communicating within your relationships. And then when Mars comes over, actually on Valentine's Day, no less, yes, it's a very, very potent time, but you might want to take action in your relationships in a new way. Now, actually, speaking of Valentine's Day, Venus is just here, just before Valentine's Day. And so you've got this great big conjunction between Venus, Mars, and Pluto, very, very close to your ascendant. So to me, it feels like it could be quite a sexual day, a sexual time, a time where you can work physically and in the heart much deeper than usual within your personal relationships. But it's also a sign of when we might be trying to be a bit controlling, because obviously Pluto, yes, is about transformation, but also is about control. So are you experiencing controls from the people in your life that are no longer acceptable to you? Or are you being dominant and controlling the narrative there? So there's a few things to work out. Suffice to say, it's a very, very strong time between the 5th and the 16th of February. Now, in between that time, we've also got the new moon, which is happening at 20 degrees. And this new moon, which is very Uranian, if you think of the rulers of Aquarius, it's Uranus and Saturn. Well, you've got the new moon, so the new moon and the sun in the sign of Aquarius, and then Uranus, one of the rulers of Aquarius, is in an exact square to the sun and the moon. This is bringing up a sense of impatience, a sense of frustration in terms of how you're getting a new start with your relationships. It almost feels like you need a new way of looking at your relationships, because things are happening quite fast and freely in terms of your career and your career opportunities and where you want to go there. So it just feels like, and I mentioned this actually, I think in the Pluto forecast, but also I created another forecast just yesterday, which has also just been released, about Chiron and the North Node, and how they are enlivening your life. And right now, it just feels like there's so much excitement up here. And so some of the tension that you're experiencing in your life is, look, I'm ready to move on and have fun. I need people that are going to move with me and have fun with me. So there's a really strong fun element. And how are you going to get your relationships to really match your new vibration? So there's a lot going on there. So that's the first couple of weeks of February. Now, it would be wrong of me not to mention the conjunction with Chiron and the North Node. So I mentioned fun and the need for it, because Chiron up here shows that you could feel very, very wounded by your view of the world. Like the ninth house shows us the greater context of religion, spirituality, politics, global events, culture, the whole shebang, publishing, the news media agencies, everything. Not only do you have a very broad view of it, but you've learned things about it that have probably caused you a lot of pain, and have caused pain in your personal lives because of your reaction to these subjects. You've been looking deeper, and maybe the pain has come from the fact that you've never felt studied enough or intelligent enough or being able to communicate and articulate great big ideas. Maybe your pain is that you've not had enough influence or whatever. But one of the things about the ninth house is also about the adventure. And one of the ways I see that you healing and using this energy of Chiron conjunct the North Node is to turn your life into an even bigger adventure than it already is. So I actually think that's why I was mentioning about the need for your relationships to match up to your new adventurous spirit, because this isn't going to go like Chiron is going to be in your ninth house for another short while, at least for another 4 years. So, this is an energy that's still building, but the more fun you can have, the more of a sense of an adventure you're having, the easier your life is getting. Now, the last part of this forecast is very much about the full moon in Virgo taking place on the 24th. And then the energy that's building up from the time of the full moon to just after, leading up to the 28th, 29th. So on the 28th, we've got this super conjunction between the sun, Mercury and Saturn, all at 9 degrees in the sign of Pisces. So this is really highlighting the fragility of how you see your money and how you balance that out with other people's money. So on the one hand, you're very personally attached to what you're earning and how you do it. But there's tension in terms of the money that's coming into you from your partners, the people around you, the people that maybe gift you. Like other people's money is very much about the 8th house, but it's also about how you're valued versus how other people are valuing you. So, in this last week, you may well feel a little bit more reticent, a little bit more isolated, and you might want to hold all spending for a bit. You might just want to simplify everything for a good week and have a feeling that you're being a bit more disciplined. With the Sun and Saturn and Mercury together in your 8th house, it's definitely a sign that it's time to be a bit more disciplined in terms of how you're managing the assets and shared resources in your life. So anyway, I hope that's helpful to you, Leo Ascendant. Have a great month ahead and catch you next month. Bye for now. And on to Virgo. So let's have a look at the Virgo Ascendant for the month of February 2024. So Virgo Ascendant, how's things going? You've got the full moon in your sign this month in your 1st house. Yikes. I've got a lot of things to talk about with that. But anyway, I'm going to distill down over this next 10 minutes or so 5 key points of things that I think are worth you looking out for in this month ahead that will really help you to navigate the energies, use this month in a great way that's going to work for you. Because this is a really interesting time, this part of the year, from sort of late winter to early spring is going to be really, really strong. A lot of changes going on. So how is this affecting you? Well, the first couple of weeks I see are really activating this sense of work and the sense of what happens outside of your home. So for instance, right now at this time of year, we always seem to have like the Sun, and then Mercury at some point will be going through this house as well, possibly Venus as well. Now you've also got Pluto that's in this area, this 6th house. The 6th house area of your chart is really highlighted in this month ahead. So, you know, this is really highlighting your home, how effective you are, how you're working at things, how balanced you are in terms of your health. It's almost like your daily life is getting an overhaul, which you kind of like, you know, in terms of, you know, if there was a sign, it would be the best office manager. It would be a Virgo. The Virgoan energy is about fixing things, getting things practically working, you know, getting everything in order. It's really shaping things up. So I think this is probably good news for you, in fact. So anyway, I've already spoken about the effect of Pluto in your sign. And if you haven't seen that, I've created a forecast in my latest Pluto video that was released 10 days ago. So you can see it on the Pluto channel and also in the recent history. You'll see it there. So there's a very useful understanding of how Pluto is going to be working for you. But we've also got Mercury, Mars and Venus joining Pluto in a conjunction within 11 days of each other. So there's this 11-day window of potential, very potent energy from the 5th to the 16th of February. First of all, it's Mercury. If you think of it, it's Mercury, Mars and Venus. It's mind, body and soul, or mind, body and heart. Mercury's the first. So Mercury comes in and it gets energized with the Pluto energy. It feels like all of a sudden the need to transform, the need to take action in the way that you do your life, the need to consider what part of your life is dying away and how you're going to recreate this new side. And it might have something to do with your health as well, because the 6th house is absolutely also about your physical health. So, you know, Mercury comes in, you might become very aware of what is not working. You know, Mercury and Pluto together is very insightful. You know, like the mind becomes like a laser-like focus. So you may well notice that there are things in your life that aren't quite right in terms of how you're managing your house, how you're doing your work, but also with your health. And you're actually able to delve into the real reasons. You can see below the lies you tell yourself. You're not going to be able to lie to yourself in this month ahead. It's going to get very difficult to do that. So I see this is starting the transformation. You know, it's a moment to be really deeply honest with you. Then we got Mars coming in. Now that's happening on Valentine's Day. So, you know, you might have a very sort of potent time at home around Valentine's Day, but it's encouraging you to take action on what you're learning. So what have you learned about yourself and your home and your work and your health? What have you learned in the last 9 days or so? What's really become apparent? Now it's time to take action. So I see you actually getting involved, getting your rubber gloves out or whatever it is that's involved there. And then finally, Venus comes in on the 16th to make that connection with Pluto. And when Venus comes in, your heart is involved. So it feels like you've got proper buy-in. You know, you're having a new thought, then having a new idea of an action you want to take. And you're also engaging your heart. Now, to me, that feels like a winning a winning strategy. This is creating an energy whereby you can create a change from thinking it to starting to do it, but having your heart involved in it. So I think there's nothing that you cannot do in this month. I really feel like this is a very strong energy for you to renovate your life, your home, your health, and the flow of how it's all working. That's important, is the flow. And obviously Mercury is your ruling planet as well. So it's very happy in this 6th house. It's going to work on all your problems. Now, during that time, we've also got the new moon, and the new moon is in a square to Uranus in your 9th house. Now, Uranus going through your 9th house has created a lot of opportunity for you, to be honest. And it's created this almost feeling of compulsion to understand the world at a much greater level. If you think Mercury is your ruling planet, you know, Uranus is a higher harmonic of belief systems and communication and the mind. So Uranus is also very mind-based. And, you know, the 9th house is typically a place not of facts and facts and figures, but it's a place of features and context. So you've been quite shocked by what you've been learning over, you know, the last long period between the like 2018, when Uranus went into the sign of Taurus. You know, you've been very much encouraged to think more broadly, even if it might shock you. So this is an interesting time. Like, these new changes that you're taking are also because of some of the shocking things you've come to realize about yourself and your relationship to the world, and possibly how much adventure you want to have in the world. So yeah, you will be feeling this sense of taking action, and also feeling the frustration of not doing it fast enough. So I'm quite excited for you. I mean, this could sound like, you know, there's a stopwatch working against you, but actually I'm quite excited by it for you. I just think you're going to feel really full of energy to get things done. Now, after that point, things start to slow down a little bit and turn a little bit more insular. Now, we've got the Chiron conjunction with the North Node. Now, I recorded a video about this yesterday that's just been released. And Chiron conjunct the North Node really gets us to think about what we're healing from, and how, when we heal it, it creates a place for us to understand ourselves and our true purpose in life. You know, we can't really see our true purpose when we're fumbling around in the dark trying to work out what ails us, you know, but once we get that out of the way, we can truly see our purpose. And yours is taking place, or this is taking place in a very sensitive part of your chart in the 8th house, which is full of judgments, full of people putting things on you, full of expectations. It's very much about life and death and all that rests in between. And it's also a house that has a lot of secrets in. It's also a house where we can really lie to ourselves in. So I suspect that since Chiron has been in this area since 2018, you've learned a lot about the lies you've told yourself and how they've made you feel safe. And you might have at some point said, okay, I don't want to think about this anymore because otherwise I might need to change. Well, this is what's happening right now. You've got the opportunity to make the full changes that puts you into a complete vibrational alignment with what your beliefs are. You might find that you need to let go of some people in your life, or accept that there are people in your life that aren't ever going to think the same way as you. And that could bring about a lot of pain and a lot of hurts. The 8th house is also about our shared resources. You know, so if we've got stocks and shares, pensions, investments and things like that with other people, they can be also causing us pain, because obviously if we've got shared investments with people, there's a certain amount that we are compromised by. We're not completely free to be ourselves when we're sharing things. It creates a level of confusion around boundaries and things. So all of these issues are likely to come up to be explored. Now, if you want an even deeper dive on this, the Chiron conjunction with the North Node, I recorded a video about this yesterday. It's released. It's a much bigger, it's not a forecast, it's more of a blueprint for you. And it's taking you from, it's taking on an 18-year journey from a Chiron North Node square, the one before this conjunction, which was at the time of the COVID announcements in March 2020, which is a very potent time for all of us. It's taking you from 2020 right the way through to 2038 at the time of the next Chiron conjunction to the North Node. So that forecast is available for you to listen to. And it's kind of describing the journey you're on and some of the steps you're taking. If anything, it should reassure you, I think. So I think this is quite helpful because you are going through some massive change. Now, in this last week, we've got the full moon in Virgo in the first house. Now, that is really speaking about the tension to be yourself. Like, you really want to be you, and you felt the tension not to be you because, you know, everyone sees the personality that they want to see, you know, so the people that you have in your life project their version of you in their head. It's always playing, and it may or may not be true. You might find that the versions that other people have that they're playing of you really don't match the you that you believe yourself to be. And so here's the sort of tension. This is a very difficult full moon for people when it's in the first house, because we feel very, very emotional and feel very we feel very not understood. Misunderstood. There you go. So you might want to consider how you can feel more understood. And also that does sort of fit in here. You know, there are some people who will never understand you in the way that you believe yourself to be. And so you can keep fighting against that, or you might actually get more clearance by allowing people to have their own experience of you. And you might also realize that if you can allow other people to experience their version of you in their own way, that you are then given the freedom to have your own thoughts about other people too. So this is a very interesting time. Last thing then I want to make you aware of is in this last part of February, there is a convergence between the Sun, Mercury and Saturn at 9 degrees in Pisces in your 7th house. You may well start to feel a bit down about the people that are around you. You might notice that they're starting to get a bit introverted given that Saturn's there, and Mercury and the Sun. So they might appear to be a bit negative. You might need to think in terms of strategies. If my loved one is a bit negative around me or a bit down, what are you going to do? Are you going to take it seriously? How might you support them? Do you need to support them? What about you? There's all sorts of different things. So have a think about that. You know, don't overthink it, you know, to the point where you start creating it, but just consider what it is that you find difficult when people are being emotional. And if you can if you can hit the nail on the head there, you'll have a much smoother last week. You know, what you might choose to do actually is around this last week is take a week for you to explore yourself. You know, you're talking here, like at the time of the full moon, it's like, why don't people understand me properly? Well, you might want to understand yourself more. And if you can put yourself on this little voyage of discovery in week 4 of February, then, you know, things might be a bit easier in your relationships. So there's quite a lot to think about there, Virgo Ascendant. I hope that's helpful to you, and have a great February, and see you in March. Bye for now. So let's have a look at Libra and the month ahead for February 2024. So Libra Ascendant then, this is quite an interesting time because it's another air sign month. You know, we've got the Sun already in Aquarius. We've got Mercury, Venus and Mars moving in and through the sign of Aquarius. And of course, Pluto has recently gone into the sign of Aquarius. So this is a very Aquarian time. Which really relates to the 5th house energy in terms of your chart. And these are the 5 key points that I want to explore for you for this month ahead. Now, I do see that the first 2 weeks in particular are the weeks where things are getting going and where things are moving, and you're feeling a lot more comfortable and a lot more stable in yourself. It's almost a time of initiation where you feel like you know the rules of what's going on. The last 2 weeks in particular are a lot more provoking. You know, they're provoking lots of different thoughts and feelings and experiences for you. So I just wanted to start from that perspective. I will also say that the Chiron conjunction to the North Node in this month ahead, which starts on the 19th, really lasts until the 5th of March, according to whether you're looking at the true node or the mean node. It doesn't really matter, but there's this really sort of hot energy of healing and karma kind of combining. It's almost like lots of things are coming to roost and there's a lot of emotionality to dive into. Well, this is all happening in your 7th house. Now, you may already be feeling that, in particular, if you're a very empathic Libra and Ascendant, that these things are already going to be playing out for you. Yesterday, and it's already released, I recorded a Chiron conjunct North Node video, and within that, I explore the greater context of what it is that you're learning in terms of healing, what things are being put on you that you feel like you have to heal from, and also what life is maybe asking from you, in terms of a sort of karmic destiny. I actually look at the Chiron North Node journey from a much bigger perspective, not just for this month ahead, but actually throughout the whole cycle, which is taking us on an 18-year journey, because I actually start the cycle a little bit before. I'm actually looking at it from the start of COVID, March 2020, when Chiron and the North Node went into a square, and taking it all the way through right now and into the future to the next Chiron conjunct North Node. So you get a real strong feel as to where life is moving you to show up in the world and connect to your purpose. So if that's for you, check that out. But anyway, I will be talking quite a bit about this within this particular reading in terms of what's going on for you in this month ahead, because it is a really painful place to have it. The 7th house is very much about the projections that you have. Lots of astrologers all say, oh, the 7th house is about your partners and your friends and your enemies, because often enemies start as partners or friends. And often the things that you like about them turn out to be the things you don't like about them. But the 7th house is all about everyone else. The 1st house is about everything that's you. The 7th house is everything that is everyone else. And of course, that includes all the perspectives. If you think of the 7th house as a mirror, it also captures how you're projecting onto your friends, but also how they're projecting onto you. And having Chiron go through this part of your chart for so long, it really is, I think, a testament to, where people might have got you wrong, where people might have figured you out incorrectly, and the pain that you've been carrying around about that, but also what people might be holding against you. Like if you think of the sign of Aries, like you're all about partnership. The Libra ascendant is about partnership, collaboration, etc., etc. And by default, anyone that's not you is going to look a lot more single-minded, single-focused. And yet you might find that there's a part of you that actually is single-focused and single-minded, that you've not been able to fit into your actual personality or fit into the way you see the world. And so you might have been putting onto the people in your life this projection that they're slightly selfish, slightly self-involved, very self-contained, when you're so expansive and partner-related. And so all of the hurts and expectations, or the dashed expectations that come up around this, are likely to come to the fore. So there's a lot of big stuff going on there. And right at the end of the month, we've got the full moon and this very busy conjunction between the Sun, Mercury and Saturn, which are all playing into the full moon. So this is a very, very strong energy in the last week. But anyway, let's start more at the beginning, because in week 1 and 2, we've got like this 11-day portal, I would say, of transformation. So Pluto has just recently come into your 5th house, which is very much about everything you're birthing. It's very much about your passions, lovemaking, romance. It's about your creativity. So, are you really fully using your creativity to the best? Are you absolutely allowing yourself to birth something new or not? Because like the birthing energy, like creativity is a birthing energy. It comes from the solar plexus energy, like this sort of core area. Are you afraid to create something? Are you afraid that you might create something and it might not work out as you wanted? Are you an artist? Are you a musician? Are you a poet? And, you have this great vision or feeling of how it's going to be. And then when it comes out, it's always a disappointment, because when it's in your heart and in your head, it feels great. It feels motivating. And often the reality of our creations doesn't quite match what we think it to be. A bit like, you know, as you get a bit older, you might see your reflection in the mirror and think, well, that doesn't relate to how I actually feel I really look. I think we all know that feeling at some level. So yeah, the fifth house energy of creation is really encouraging you to create again, to keep creating again, to not stop creating, in fact, because creation is the energy of life. And so Pluto here is absolutely transforming you. Now, what I like about this first window of opportunity here is we've got Mercury, which is about the mind, Mars, about your body, your vitality and taking action, and then Venus, about your heart and the flow in your life. And you could call it soul, I guess. So we've got mind, body, and soul all coming into a conjunction with Pluto over a period of 11 days. And so how I see this is, yes, you've got this energy of potential and transformation coming in, urging you to create something, and yet you don't know how to get started. Well, this is the month that things get started. Isn't that exciting? So, you know, first of all, on the 5th, Mercury makes a conjunction with Pluto, and your ability to think about things you want to create becomes really insightful, penetrating, laser-like focus. You know, that's your time to mind map, to dream, daydream, go for a walk and like figure things out, book a chat with a friend who's into possibility. This is a time to think big and think bigger and keep penetrating into all these untapped possibilities about yourself. You know, really allow your mind to come up with as much as you can and let that percolate, let that really sort of take action in some way. Because as Mars comes in on Valentine's Day on the 14th, Mars is there saying, okay, you've had enough time to think about this now. 9 days. It's not much time, actually. But Mars is coming in and saying, okay, have we got enough energy built in our mental faculty to make a change? Have we? And if we have, then Mars is urging you to use your force, your determination, your guts to really make a difference. This is a time when we can really dig down deep and find an actual really strong resource. It's like your body, your desire to take action, plus the sense of Pluto, which is really stubborn. So it's giving you a lot of determination to do something. And then 2 days later, you've got the inspiration, the Venus, and Venus is your ruling planet. So she comes in, she connects with Pluto. She's like, Pluto, man, you've got it all wrong. Pluto and Mars, like, listen up. You can't get this done without the heart. You can't get this done without the inspiration. And so all of these threes come together to get you creating again. Now, whilst this is happening, you've also got the new moon on the 9th. So you've got the sun and the moon here, and they are in a square to Uranus. Now, Uranus is making us hurry, making us rush. So as we've got this new moon energy on the 9th, really urging you to create something and enjoy the creation, you're also remembering times when maybe things didn't create very well. The 8th house is a part of birth, life, death. It's the continuous cycle. It reminds us that, you know, we're born, we have infancy, we're a child, we're a young adult, we become an adult, we get menopausal, then we get old, and then we go round and round and round in circles. So it's reminding us of all these different phases of life, and the fact that there are some phases of life we need to move on from and move away from. And so all of these big changes you're making, have you made them fully? Have you made them deeply? Are you ready to dive into the next adventure? Because Uranus is really saying, come on, I'm frustrated now. Time to change. So this is all really good. First couple of weeks, really getting you thinking and getting you moving to just create, which is what Librans are born to do. Now, then it gets a little bit sticky. Now, in that stickiness, I don't think it's terrible. I actually think there's even more opportunity, because what you're coming up against from the 19th to the end of the month is all the reasons why you're not going to create. So on the 19th, when the Chiron conjunction with the North Node comes into its fullest strength, you'll be full of excuses for yourself. And it might be because you don't have the right people around you, or you can't do this because this person in your life isn't going to support you enough, or you've got too many things to do at home, or too many blah, 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 blah. There's going to be a whole bunch of reasons. And they might also be you know, you might be blaming other people for your lack of taking actions. That's something to consider. Where are you allowing other people to determine how much you're going to create? So, you know, that energy in and of itself is going to create a lot of thinking things out, figuring things out. But this full moon, which is here in your 12th house, that's definitely one that gets us feeling hypersensitive and dreamy, which is kind of cool, but it's also a little bit confusing in the 12th house. The 12th house is very vast. It's very much the unconscious mind. So you might get more of a sense that things don't quite feel right, that something not quite fitting in. You're entering into a mysterious state with a full moon on the 24th. It feels like there's something below the surface, something you're not quite consciously aware of. Over the week ahead from the 24th, you will be getting more conscious. You'll be getting more consciously aware of it. You've got, by this time, you've got the Sun, Mercury and Saturn going through your 6th house, which is about your conscious body, your conscious home, your conscious work, how you sort your life out. So I think whatever's going on for you around the time of the full moon, by the end of the month, you're able to consciously see the patterns, work with the patterns, think about them, and take some discipline to move these patterns. So Libra, in this month ahead, actually, you've got one of the most catalyzing charts that I've seen so far on the Zodiacs that I've been reading. But anyway, lots and lots of love to you on this month ahead. I hope this is helpful. Like I said, I've got the Chiron conjunct North Node blueprint. Like I said, it's a really big blueprint. It's on a different video that you can tune in and use. And if you haven't already seen the Pluto forecast that I've also given, check that out too. But anyway, have a great month ahead and hopefully see you next month in March. Lots of love. Bye for now. So we're on to Scorpio, and where should we start? Well, this is quite an interesting month. The first, these are the 5 big things I've highlighted that I think are most pertinent to your experience of February in 2024. And the first thing that I think is important to focus on is the fact that this is a month of 2 halves. So the first 2 weeks are very much in the getting going, get up and go kind of category. There's a lot of movement going on. Involving both of your ruling planets, Pluto and Mars. And then towards the end of the month, there's a lot more thinking going on and some things to work out. Okay, so let's start with the beginning. And this is all preparation because next month in March, there are some big patterns, but actually the really big stuff is taking place in April. And some of the themes from, for instance, the Chiron conjunction to the North Node, that is really going to come into its own power in quite a powerful way for you in the month of April. And also when we've got the Uranus-Jupiter conjunction in your 7th house in April, that's also really big. The total solar eclipse is massive. So yeah, lots of big stuff. But anyway, let's start at the beginning. So first thing I want to really draw your attention to is where the energy is right now. And it's all down here. It's focused around the home, which includes privacy, intuition, your family, your physical house. It also taps into your parents, if they're still with you. The things you learned from your parents, some of the insecurities, your behaviors really come from the 4th house because they came from they came from childhood. You've been learning this stuff all your life. So the 4th house is really our grounding. How grounded are we? And this is a month where grounding gets explored a lot. So I see that there's this really big window of opportunity from the 5th to the 16th of February. During that time, Mercury, Mars, and Venus are crossing over Pluto. Now, if you remember, Pluto's just gone into the sign of Aquarius, and Pluto is making connections with each of these planets for the first time in Aquarius in 2024. Now, what is interesting to me is the fact that Pluto, the last time Pluto connected with Mercury in a conjunction, Venus in a conjunction, and Mars in a conjunction, they were all in the sign of Capricorn. This is the first time that Pluto is having a conjunction with Mercury in Aquarius, a conjunction with Mars in Aquarius, and a conjunction with Venus in Aquarius for well over 200 years. So this is the start of a new cycle. And the next series of conjunctions with all of them will be in the sign of Aquarius for the next 20 years. So there's definitely a new theme. There's definitely a new flavor. Now, Mercury is very much about the mind. Mars is very much about the body and taking action. And Venus is very much about the heart. Some people say it's like the inspiration, like the soul type thing. So we've got mind, body, and soul, all three very personal inner planets. We've got mind, body, and soul all coming into a conjunction with Pluto in Aquarius for the first time. I see this as a real reset in how you function. Like the Mercury coming into Pluto is like a laser-like focus. You're able to see things much more deeply than usual through an Aquarian lens as opposed to a Capricorn lens. Like the Capricorn lens is very kind of materialistic, status driven, very into tradition. This is unconventional, social, worldwide, global, visionary. So you're going to be seeing things from a whole new perspective. And that's going to be making changes for you at home. And then Mars is coming over this point on Valentine's Day. Your body is absolutely motivated to make a change. This is a change point for you where you can change the way your body is functioning at a real functional level. Now, given this is in the fourth house, the fourth house is about our grounding. So anywhere where you're not grounding properly, like, and obviously I'm not a doctor, I must stress that, though I'm sure nobody that's listening so far has ever even thought that. But just to be clear, you know, anywhere where your initial coding, like your DNA or the way your body works, is it eliminating things? Do you know what I mean? I really feel that if you've got an existing health problem, that you can absolutely penetratively get to the root cause of it. You know, especially because you're a Scorpio ascendant, you've got your Mars and Pluto coming together in the fourth house very, very strongly. Venus is also there, which is great because she's also adding a healing energy. So are you healing your problems with the home? Are you healing the problems with your body? And in terms of your root chakra, which is again, very sort of like fourth house place, it's very much about the groundedness and how you get everything working properly. So this is a really potent time for you. I just see that this is a fantastic time for you where you can absolutely change the way things are working. Now, you know, it's up to you how deep you are in terms of this. But yeah, this is foundational. Very exciting. And during this time, there's also a new moon in the sign of Aquarius on the 9th, really kind of capturing all of this energy with it. And it's in a square to Uranus, which is one of the rulers of Aquarius. So again, the Aquarian theme is amplified. And the Aquarian theme is unconventional, different, shocking, changing, social, global, visionary. It's really quite cool. And you may well find that whatever you're setting in place is receiving a little bit of friction from the people you live with or the people around you, but that shouldn't put you off. You know, right now it's time for you to absolutely run your life and I think renew your life in a new way. So this is good. Then we're moving on towards the second part of the month. Now, the Chiron North Node conjunction is taking place in the 6th house. Now, obviously, the 6th house again has a very strong health influence. You know, it's about how you manage your home, your work, your health. So all of the kind of smooth flows of how your life is evolving, is changing, is working for you, that's the thing that's being investigated. You know, and any pain that you've had in your life might be because you know something's not smoothly working or operating in your life. And the pain here is, how do you get that balance right? How do you turn things around so that it feels great to be able to work and also to be able to come home and also to have your family and also to be able to manage your health and also be able to manage your finances? The 6th house is a bit of a catch-all place. it's not a glamorous place, but it's a place that we can't ignore. It's a place where there's a lot of worldliness. You know, if we get it right, we can really achieve a lot. So I'm getting a very similar message with this. We've got this chance to renovate how we live our life because it's causing us pain. And we're really aware of the pain that where our life isn't working is causing us. And then down here, we've got the chance to really deeply impact it, really deeply make some changes. So I see these going hand in hand, and it's really, I think, flipping awesome. Now, if you're curious about the Chiron conjunction with the North Node, I've recorded a much bigger video, which you'll also see on the channel, called Chiron conjunct the North Node, or something around that. And in that, I give a much fuller explanation of what this energy is doing for your ascendant, not just for now and this month ahead, but for a really long time, for a full Chiron North Node period, which is over 14 years. In fact, I do it for 18 years because I start slightly before. So I'm sort of like telling the story of Chiron and the North Node and what they're creating for you. So that is available to you if you think that will be of help. Then we're moving on to this full moon energy and what's in opposition to the moon. So the full moon is up here, showing, it's sort of illuminating things in your 11th house. It's absolutely talking about what you're co-creating, the people you have in your life, your networks, maybe your customers, the people you're influencing, how you're influencing them. And also, how ready are you to receive and collaborate and create with the world at large? I really see the 11th house as being a place of co-creation and creating magic with others. So this full moon might bring up some tension about that. And, you know, it's good to be aware of that and what your part is, you know, in terms of what you're playing with. But what's interesting is obviously the moon in a full moon position, it's the moon in opposition to the sun. So, you know, the moon is doing her thing, but she's doing it because of what's happening with the sun and vice versa. You know, they're both working in this kind of seesaw balance. So what's going on the other end? You know, because this is all about co-creating with others, but what's really going on at the other side? Well, the sun is at this point in the last week of February is in the sign of Pisces. It's in your place of creation, what you're creating. What are you passionate about? Like the 5th house is, what are you passionate about? What brings you joy? How do you want to work? How do you want to live? You know, it's everything you're creating. It's your children, your pets, and it's playful. It's childlike. So the sun is reminding you, where have you not had enough joy? Where have you had a deficit of joy? Because, you know, this full moon and the subsequent few days after, it's there to help you answer that question. You know, I feel tense. I'm not sure that my creations with other people are bringing me enough joy. Why not? Well, what's going on in this area of joy? So you got the sun, by this time, Mercury's there as well, and Saturn. Now, Saturn in the 5th doesn't seem to speak of great joy because Saturn's always about restrictions. But Saturn can actually help you create more stability around what brings you joy. So I see this as you getting up close and personal with what's going to create joy for you. So I see this as a very, very strong month for you. Trust me, as we go into March, when we start having our first eclipse, we've got the solstice. And then obviously in April, things really take off. We've got some massive stuff going on in April. So this is an important month. Don't ignore it. Make the most of it. And hopefully, you know, if you need any more advice, you can, you know, get in contact. Feel free. My details are below. But have a great month ahead and hopefully see you in March. But anyway, have fun and speak to you real soon. Bye for now. Okay, so on to Sagittarius then. So let's see what's going on with Sagittarius Ascendant. So I'm looking at these forecasts for March 2024 from the position of these 5 particular areas of the chart or aspects like the planetary energies. And essentially, I think this month ahead is a month of 2 parts. The first part is very go, go, go. It's quite intense. There's a lot of movement. There's a sort of rush, a hurry to do things. And then the last part is very reflective and is really showing us how much further we've got to go, what else we've got to develop about ourselves, what might be holding us back, where are we self-sabotaging and whatnot. So let's just dive right in, shall we? So the first thing I want to bring to your attention is this area here, because with a Sagittarius energy in your chart, what's going on here is your third house is really highlighted right now. So, last month we had Pluto going into Aquarius, and it's going to be there for the next 20 years. So we need to get really used to this energy. So Pluto is changing our experience about the third house and everything it is. So what is the third house about? It's about feeling a sense of belonging, feeling a sense of community, knowing our peers, or having a good peer group around us. It's the cosmic marketplace, put it that way. It's also where we get a lot of information and learn our first language and possibly subsequent languages. It's very important. It's we can't really do much if we don't use our community very well or participate in our community. So there's all sorts of elements of participation. And it's also a place where we can have influence. So having, Pluto going into this area is challenging us to have a greater influence within our communities and to take pride, take action, and transform our participation in our communities. It definitely makes for much more compelling relationships with, people in and around us. We could be very powerful, in this area. Now, in this month ahead, this first 2 weeks, we've got a window of opportunity of 11 days where I see we've got Mercury, Mars, and Venus coming into a conjunction with Pluto. So Mercury is our mind, our communication, the way we perceive things, and move very quickly. Mercury's a fast mover. So we've got the mind. We've got Mars, which is very much about the body, the vitality, and how we take action. And then we've got Venus, which is the heart. It's our sort of inspiration. It's like a kind of soul speaking to us, I guess. It's a flow. It's a natural, beautiful, feminine flow. You could say it's mind, body, soul. You could say the mind, the masculine, and the feminine. But essentially, each of these three personal inner planets are connecting with Pluto for the first time in the sign of Aquarius in over 200 years. So it is setting up a whole new cycle of experience for us. And from now on in, for the next 20 years, every time Mercury connects with Pluto, it's going to be in the sign of Aquarius. So yeah, this is we are raising things up. There is a new pattern emerging for us. So you might want to consider what's happening for you as Mercury connects with Pluto on the 5th. Our minds are being transformed in a very direct and penetrative way in terms of what we're doing in our community. All of our energy is about focusing on the community and focusing on the people and meeting and contracting with the people, like being in the marketplace, but in a really focused way. We've also got Mars going in there on the 14th. And so our bodies, like we're getting out and about into our local environment with purpose, like really purposefully. And it will make big changes to our level of how much belonging we feel we have. And then Venus is there as well, showing our heart and how much we can enjoy being in our communities and how we can have great relationships with people in our community. So I see this as a real sort of like strong opportunity for us to network, with the Sagittarius energy in, being like having this transformative energy in our third area for all the people with a strong Sagittarius ascendant. During this time, this window of opportunity, we've also got the new moon emphasizing this area. So you've got the sun and the moon, and then it's in a square to Uranus, which is saying, come on, speed it up, hurry up, get going already. So this new moon is absolutely encouraging us to take action in our communities and set something new up. So yeah, it's all very much about being busy and going from A to B and B to A and B to C and all over the place. It's all about connections and the learning that comes from that. So this is a pattern that's going to repeat many, many times, with every time Mercury, Venus and Mars come back to the third house for you and connect with Pluto, you're going to go even deeper into the community and even deeper. So I do think this is going to transform your energies of belonging in a great way. Now, for the last part of the month, you've got Chiron in a conjunction with Neptune. Not Neptune, the North Node. This has been happening for ages. It's been coming up for a long time. You've had Chiron going through this part of your chart for a long time. Now the North Node is sort of heading off here as well. So this is showing us what we're clearing to find our purpose. And it may well show up as a feeling of pain. And for you, your pain as it arises might be that you haven't created enough, or your creations haven't quite gone the way you wanted. Now, by creations, how am I describing that? The fifth house is known for children, our pets, also our hobbies that may or may not be bringing us joy, but also our relationships in terms of new romance. Like romance is really highlighted here. It's really a place of new starts. Sexuality and sensuality are really highlighted in the fifth house. It's where we really enjoy ourselves in a sort of creative and passionate way. So you might get very real to the fact that there's not as much passion, there's not as much sensuality, there's not much joy as you'd like to experience. And so you might become very aware of why there isn't and want to do something about it. I wouldn't take action just yet, but just if you can bear to sit with the realization that there's not enough joy and that you're missing it, and let yourself be a bit vulnerable to it, then I think there's a real possible transformation coming up. Because during this time, the very next week, we've got the full moon in the 10th for you, and we've got the Sun, Mercury and Saturn showing up in your fourth house. So this is also going to help you realize why maybe there's not enough joy. This is as you're feeling very open and vulnerable, we've got this very strong full moon that is really coming across these 10th and 4th houses, which are very, very strong houses to experience things in. So the full moon is really bringing to your attention how much have you achieved from what you were hoping to achieve? Has it all panned out in the way that you wanted? If not, why not? And are you making yourself fully vulnerable in your sphere of where you are projecting yourself? Your career and how you're recognized is really, really strong. So you might be super sensitive at that point. And then, full moons always have a sun in opposition. And in this week, the sun is coming together with Mercury and Saturn in your fourth house. So you may well find that you're feeling stressed, tight, that things are feeling very sort of like tightened in your life in terms of how things are at home for you. And you might be realizing your home is not what you were hoping. It doesn't feel right. It's not quite organized enough. This is a time to, I have to remind you not to take it too seriously. Just see it as information. See, yes, I feel tight. Yes, it doesn't feel good. Maybe I haven't got enough money at home. Maybe this has come in this big bill. And it's just information. And there's so much more. If you see it as, just my luck, this, that, you're going to get yourself into a nasty old funk. I really advise that you don't do that. But if you can see it as information and say, okay, I haven't got enough money, or okay, yes, my house is a mess, what's the next step? If you can just see it as information and not put the emotion into it, which is what obviously the full moon does, makes things super emotional, then you can start to move beyond that, and you can probably move quite quickly. So there you go. You could use this energy to focus you to take action, but you can only do that if you're not taking it personally. So there you go, Saggy Ascendant. I hope this has been helpful to you. I don't know if I said this already, but I've created a long video about Chiron conjunct the North Node from a much bigger perspective, from the whole cycle, because it takes, anything between 10 to 15 years for Chiron and the North Node to come back together. Obviously, this month it comes together. They come together for the first time in 15 years. The next time they come together is in 14 years and 8 months. But I've gone through that cycle for your ascendant sign. So if that's of interest, it's a very sort of high level sort of blueprint about, how your purpose and how your gift of life is being revealed to you. So that might be useful. But anyway, lots of love to you. Have a great month ahead and catch you next month. Bye for now. So we're on to Capricorn. What is coming up for you? Well, we're looking at February 2024, and these are the 5 points that I think are really important to focus on in this month ahead. The first one is a series of conjunctions to Pluto. So yeah, Pluto is in your sign for ages. He is coming back into your sign later on, but not just yet. At the moment, he's in the sign of Aquarius. But Pluto is going to make his first conjunction with Mercury in the sign of Aquarius. He's making his first conjunction with Mars in the sign of Aquarius, and he's making his first connection with Venus in the sign of Aquarius for 250 odd years. This is the start of a new series for Pluto, so yes, he is coming back into your sign later on this year. However, he's already starting to make new friends, a bit like when you're leaving home, you make a few friends outside of the home before you move away, so you're kind of bridging the two. Pluto's making better friendships with Mercury, Mars, and Venus. That's how I see it anyway. So yeah, the series of conjunctions are helping you use this Pluto energy from a second house perspective. So, Pluto coming through here is going to be teaching you over the next 20 years about the value of money, the value of power, and also how you can powerfully value yourself, which is a very different thing. He's going to put you through your paces for sure. And in fact, if you are a bit curious about the journey that you're going to go on with Pluto in the sign of Aquarius, I did a very big video about 10 days ago, which you can see on this channel, which is all about Pluto and Aquarius. And there's a sign by sign forecast for you for the year ahead. So that could be quite useful. But what I see with these 3 planets coming in, these inner planets, these personal planets, is, Mercury's coming into a conjunction on the 5th. That's your mind, the way you think. It's like your mind is now given the Pluto flavor, the Pluto and Aquarius flavor. So you're going to be really insightful in a new way. You're going to be communicating in a new way. This is a deeper transformation about your values that you'll be able to articulate and reach. And then Mars is coming in on the 14th, on Valentine's Day. Mars is coming in, connecting with Pluto in your second house. You're going to have a much stronger visceral reaction about your values, your resources, and what you can do, and the kinds of action that you can take. And then on the 16th, Venus is joining Pluto, really allowing you to see how, when your heart is connected to the transformation, that things can happen even more strongly. So this is really a strong transformational energy in your second house of money and values. You've got Mercury, Mars, Venus. That's your mind, your body, your heart, all coming together to work with the Pluto energy. And during that time, you've also got the new moon, the sun and the moon in the sign of Aquarius, in a square to Uranus in your 5th. This is, again, I think I've spoken about Uranus in the 5th and the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction that's coming up in April, and how that is really encouraging you to have another string to your bow. You might have a creation coming up, I don't know, but this is a time for you to get super creative and to use your usual Capricornian ways of being able to achieve things. I mean, you guys are really good at allowing success to come forwards. You're not backwards in moving forwards. You just take one step and another and another and another, but you're being urged to be more creative and to link it in with your money. One thing I would say at the time of this new moon, start making your new plans, but don't forget about the power of your creation right now. It's super strong, and it's going to be urging you to work faster and faster. Now, in the last 2 weeks, we've got this kind of painful position here with Chiron in a conjunction with the North Node. Now, this has been coming into actuality for quite some time. So, I've spoken about this before, and I spoke about this in the 2024 update. So this shouldn't be strange to you or new to you if you've been to this channel before. But these two coming together are showing us where we have pain and where the pain actually is stopping us from seeing our true purpose. And we might realize that the pain, through dealing with the pain and resolving our hurts and healing our body and our mind, that we come into our true purpose. It's difficult to be on track when we are in a world of pain, like we are very distracted. So how these two work together are very important. You might even have pain because you're not on track and you're not like living your blueprint of why you're here. Like you're a soul in a physical body. That might be your view. It might not be. But, if you believe that and you're like, crikey, I'm a soul. And yet I'm in this flipping body doing menial stuff like earning money and having a house and needing to do all these like worldly things. It's hurting my soul doing it. So that might be your wound, but it's showing up in your fourth house. And we've all got it somewhere in our charts right now. And it is beckoning us to look a bit deeper. And it's beckoning us to not ignore any of our soul's communications. It's saying, come on, Capricorn Ascendant, listen. And you might hear it as a little whisper. That's how I hear it in my head. But yeah, it's in your fourth house. So it's something about belonging, something about your home, your family. And we get a lot of pain stored in the fourth house, very much to do with our childhood, like wounding from childhood. Like, I don't know what it could be, but often it feels like we're not good enough and we're not loved enough and cherished. So yeah, you may well feel a little bit sensitive around that time. And you need to be kind to yourself. Take it slow. Don't put too much pressure on yourself. Take some time off if possible, if your busy schedule allows. Now, a week later, and I think these do play into each other. A week later, we've got the full moon in Virgo, and with all full moons, there's always a sun that's in opposition, and that sun in opposition to the moon also is coming into a super alignment with Mercury and Saturn. So these things are called stelliums, where you have, two, or when you have more than two planets come together in a place. It's called a stellium. It's very strong, very potent. Even though Saturn and Mercury aren't very comfortable in the sign of Pisces, it's still a very potent set of energies. Now, when this comes up, the full moon in Virgo is activating the ninth house, this need to break free of confines. There's this need to know more, be more, do more. There's this need to understand the world at a deeper level. There's this need to have a much wider vision and possibly to get out of that normal space that you are living in. And then the sun, Mercury and Saturn are very solidifying in your local environment, saying you can't reach out there because you haven't got this sorted yet. And so it's almost like wanting to run before you can walk. I don't know what it is exactly. The sun, Mercury and Saturn are getting you very much focused on your local environment, taking action with your local friends, being busy, being in meetings, learning a lot of stuff. It's really pulling you back to where you know and where people know you belong. And yet there's this yearning to belong somewhere else. So that's something for you to work through. And it maybe has something to do with any childhood wounding. But anyway, I hope that was helpful to you, Capricorn Ascendant. I don't know if I said this already, but I've done a very big deep dive on the Chiron conjunction North Node energy for the whole span of a Chiron North Node cycle. It really is a deep dive, helping you to see the gift of who you are. So that's there for you to look at if you want to. Just check out the Chiron North Node video. And like I said already, there's also the Pluto video that will give you a greater context. But hopefully this is very helpful for you to navigate February 2024 and to get ready for even bigger energies in March and April, even more bigger energies. So anyway, have a great month ahead. And you know where I am if you need me or want to chat with me. But anyway, see you next month. Lots of love. Bye for now. And on to Aquarius Ascendant then. So Aquarius Ascendant, this is your forecast for the month ahead for February 2024. 4. Now we're coming into your time. If ever there was a time when you felt magical, where butter wouldn't melt, when you just could get away with being yourself, really truly get away with being you, being unconventional, being social, being concerned about things, but also very much going to the beat of your own drum, then this is the month for you. This is a really strong one. Now, all of the energy is here. Like so much here right now. So like Pluto did move into Aquarius, not for the last time. He's going to go back into Capricorn in this year and then go back into Aquarius on the 19th of November. But for all intents and purposes, he's here for now. Now, Pluto is going to make his first connection with Mercury in the sign of Aquarius for 250 years. He's also then going to connect in a conjunction with Mars for the first time in Aquarius for 250 years, and also with Venus later on. So there is this 11-day window whereby your experience of transformation in the sign of Aquarius is kind of recoding your mind, your body, and your heart, because Mercury is very much about the mind, your communication, how you process things, very much about, what you're believing about things. Mars is very much about your body, your vitality, how you take action. It's very much about your survival. And Venus about the heart. And obviously from the heart, when we're heart-centered, it's like an inspiration. It's like your soul or your heart talking to you, giving you messages. So I really see that this, first 2 weeks as Mercury, Mars, and Venus come into Aquarius and also connect to Pluto, we are, or you are, being really totally transformed on a mind, body, and soul basis. It's giving you an opportunity to see life differently and through the medium of who are you, like the first house. This is about your identity, your physical body, your boundaries, who you let in and who you keep out. It's also about how you want to be seen, your first impressions. So there's so much to this. This is your time for sure. Now, during this time, we've also got the new moon in Aquarius in your first house. And this new moon is in a square to Uranus. Now, Uranus is one of your rulers. You've got Uranus and you've also got Saturn. So it's very interesting that the new moon in your sign is also connected to one of your rulers by a square. Now, Uranus is in your 4th house, and that's going to come into play a lot more as we get closer and closer to April, because there's a big conjunction with Uranus. But, Uranus helps us to see things very quickly. It encourages us to make changes. It's like, let's move real fast. And it helps us to be a bit, I think, intuitive and telepathic. We're picking up on things. It's the higher consciousness. It's a higher harmonic of Mercury, in fact. And the frustration, which comes up with a square, you've got the sun and the moon, really creating a new start in terms of your identity. You're feeling differently. You're wanting to show a different side of yourself. And then Uranus is in the 4th house saying, yes, but you can't make those changes without making changes at home. So the tension for you is, I see a new me emerging. But of course, the moment you change you, it reverberates into your home and your house and your home life. So how are you going to resolve that? Well, I mean, that's your question. That's your thing to ponder. Like, how can I recreate myself without it disturbing my home? Is almost closing down your possibility to be yourself. Whereas you might ask yourself, how can I transform myself and accept new possibilities with myself whilst also having a fantastic home life? That is opening up the potential. So I would ask yourself opening questions if I was in your shoes right now, so that you don't get yourself down a blind alley that you can't get out of. Because seriously, this is your time to create something really new and powerful for you. So use this opportunity. Now, talking about change and opportunity and stuff, it would be wrong of me not to talk about Chiron in a conjunction with the North Node. So the last time this happened was 15 years ago, and the next time it will happen is in 14 years and 8 months. So, Chiron and North Node have a different length cycle each time they come together. But when they come together, We are very aware of hurts, in particular global hurts, and the impact they're having on us, and also community hurts and the impact they're having on us. Like the transiting Chiron always shows us the hurts that are coming at us, like the slings and arrows that are coming at us, and where they're hitting us in life. And then the North Node, the transiting North Node, is showing us what life is requiring of us karmically, and showing what our purpose might be in terms of the greater collective. And so we've got these two coming together, really showing that there's a global change going on right now. And it's encouraging us to think about what our part is. Now, wherever this is going on, especially if there's a planet or an angle there, you'll be feeling it a lot more sensitively. Hopefully it's not too sensitive for you where it is. But this is encouraging you to open up, to be bit more vulnerable. It's encouraging you to recognize where you don't quite feel good. Because once you realize that, you're opening a space for the light to get in. You're opening yourself up to the potential of healing. And you can't do that if you don't look. So it's an interesting time. Now, in terms of this month ahead, it's really showing up. You're being reminded about pains that come to you from your community. So, you might ask yourself, do I feel comfortable in this community? Does my community reflect who I am? Am I actually in the right community? Do I belong? Maybe you don't. Maybe you feel really isolated. Maybe you feel isolated from your peers that you grew up with, your siblings, which is very much a third house thing. You might feel like you don't have much influence, which is very much a third house thing. Now, that's kind of cool if that is going on, because with Pluto coming into your first house and your new moon in Aquarius, you're being encouraged to be quite powerful. So, whatever is going on, if you're not feeling powerful enough in your community, don't worry, help is at hand. But you might be feeling sensitive around this time, and everyone else is feeling quite sensitive around this time. This is a huge event, and I do think we're going to be feeling it globally. And the total solar eclipse on the 8th of April, the sun and the moon and the nodes and Chiron are all working together. So whatever's going on now is likely to come up even stronger for you over the next couple of months. So get working on it now is my advice. Now, if you wanted an even bigger picture of how this is playing out, I've done a very long recording. You'll see released today, there is a Chiron conjunct North Node video, and I do break it down much, much more and break this specific aspect down into a kind of blueprint as to what life is asking you to do. Like, what is your purpose? What is your gift to the world over this next Chiron North Node period? So that might be worth checking out if that's of interest. So the last thing that I want to mention then is about this last week, where we've got the full moon in Virgo, and all full moons are in opposition to the sun. Now, it just so happens that at the time that it's in opposition to the sun is also in a stellium, or kind of like a super conjunction, a super occurrence. We've got the sun and Mercury and Saturn in a conjunction together in the sign of Pisces. Mercury's not happy there. Saturn's not that comfortable there. It's a kind of uncomfortable stellium, so we are encouraged to consider what is ours and what is everyone else's. I think the second house and eighth house traditionally are associated with money, our money, the second house, other people's money, the eighth house. I also see it as being a place of values and value systems. So how do I value myself? It's the second house. How do other people value me and see me? The eighth house. There's a lot of judgments in the eighth house, by the way. So the emphasis in this last week is very much about your value. What are you giving? How are people receiving you? Do they appreciate you? How are you being judged? And in particular with this eighth house full moon, I would stay away from judgmental people in this last week. If whoever your biggest critic is likely to really get under your skin. So stay well away from them and don't take them too seriously. If someone is putting something on you and you're feeling emotional about it, you might want to ask yourself, who does this really belong to? Does this belong to the you that is you right now? Or does this belong to them and their judgments, and they can stay the hell away? Or are they actually referring to a you that was from years ago that actually you can bear to see, acknowledge, heal, integrate, and let it go. What really comes up here is that there might be unfinished business that can be finished and needs to be finished. The last thing then is this Sun, Mercury and Saturn conjunction. When Mercury goes into the second house, we do think about making more money, but we also consider our value quite a bit. And Mercury and Saturn in a conjunction can be a bit depressive. We can be a bit serious in our thinking. And so, with Saturn going through this area of your house, you may well have been feeling, what is the point of me? Is there any value to me? What am I giving? And we can get quite negative around this time. So you may well, need to have a strong word with yourself and boost you up. Another possibility, and this is if you're already feeling quite resourced, and fingers crossed you are, but the Sun, which is very much about your ego and your personality, Mercury, your mind and your thinking, the way you're talking to yourself, and then Saturn creating some discipline. These three could come together to create a new way to bring in money. You could really use this powerful, potent energy to get your act together. So, yeah, I think Aquarius Ascendant, this is a very, very strong time for you this month. Use this energy to your best. And like I said, if you want to know more about Pluto, there's a Pluto video with a very specific forecast for you. There's also the Chiron North Node one there for you. There's this for this month ahead. So hopefully you've got everything you need at your fingertips. If I can be of any help at all to navigate this space, then please do make contact. My details are below. But if not, hopefully I'll see you again in the month of March. So have a great month ahead and speak to you real soon. Bye for now. And finally, on to Pisces. Right, Pisces. This is an interesting time and possibly a time that has you feeling a little bit, I don't want to say isolated, but the idea of it's always darkest before dawn. That's a phrase I always come to when I think of my birthday. Now, it's not quite your birthday just yet. The first load of Pisces birthdays will be occurring from the 19th of February, which is when the Pisces season starts. But you're as we're going into this month, you're in this kind of 12th house phase. So there is this, the Pisces ascendant energy comes into its own from the 19th, but until that phase, everything is really very much in the 12th house. And we often feel a little bit distracted, a little bit dreamy, a little bit asleep. I see it as a hibernation time, a time when we want to kind of curl up in ourselves, go to sleep and wait for it to pass, knowing that when we wake up, it's going to be time to get going again, because all the Sun, Mercury, Venus, possibly Mars are getting ready to cross over into the first house. That's our wake up call. So it's a funny time of year. Now, in spite of that, I want to give you some advice that's going to help you in terms of navigating this hibernation time and also getting ready to celebrate your wake up when the alarm goes off, the cosmic alarm bell. Now, I do see, funnily enough, that this month is of two halves. And it actually, to me, it looks like you should be wide awake in the first 2 weeks and then sleep a little bit and relax a little bit in the first 2 weeks of your wake up time. Almost like when you come into the Pisces season from the 19th, I actually think you should have a lie in. So you shouldn't jump out of bed, hop in the shower and get straight down the gym, get straight to work. I think you should do it like a Saturday morning lie in. I say that from memory because I've got 3 kids. So that hasn't happened for, years, well over a decade. So, have a Saturday morning lie-in when we come into Pisces season, okay? That's my first bit of advice. Anyway, let me talk about this. So what's going on? First things first, the big news of last month was Pluto came into the sign of Aquarius. And when he did that, he's essentially come into your 12th house space, which is about your imagination, your intuition, all those things that are loose ends that you've kind of left hanging that maybe you don't want to face. It does include your fears. It does include your insecurities, but it also includes the concept of life after death. It does sort of have the idea of who am I really? It really is about your soul's directive. you know, I see that the 12th house is almost where we become untangled from our life. You know, if the first house is about us waking up, or you could say being born, and then, you know, each house subsequently is about how we're making sense of life. Then as we're coming into this bit, if we were to look at this as the age of your experience, you know, this bit is you coming to terms with letting go of your life, or what is beyond my physical body. You know, where am I going to lay my hat for the last time? Now, I'm not saying that to predict your death at all. Not at all. I don't know how to do that, by the way. I don't, you know, it's not of interest to me. But what is of interest to me is how you adapt to the idea of you here, which is, this is me in my body, fully here, conscious. And then this is your kind of sleep thing. This is kind of like you in, like, before birth, like in the vaginal canal. Now, that might have grossed some people out, so let's take away that imagery. But it's like the womb-like state. This is almost like your cave where you're hiding out. So for the first 2 weeks of February, you're in your cave-like, womb-like experience where anything is possible, where you're more connected to your spiritual self than your physical self. And you're ripe for very deep and permanent and magical, I think, transformations. So Pluto is going to have his first conjunction with Mercury in the sign of Aquarius, followed by his first conjunction with Mars in the sign of Aquarius, followed by his first conjunction with Venus in the sign of Aquarius in your whole life for well over 250 years, I think. So this is a start of a new pattern in your unconscious mind and how you perceive all that is spiritual. Now, given that Pluto is the god of the underworld as well, and so is absolutely, completely okay with psychic energy, intuition, letting go of things and transforming, you know, this could be a deep experience. This could also be quite a trippy experience. Like Mercury is your mind, Mars is your body, Venus is your heart, your flow. So your mind, your thinking, your thoughts, the way you communicate, the way you take action with Mars, you know, your body, what you're going to do with your body, how you're going to enjoy your body, even though you realize you're a spiritual being. Your heart, represented by Venus, is your like heartbeat, your flow, your love of life, your desire for connection and communion. All these three could be taking you on a wonderful retreat into the greater purpose of who you are. And that's my invitation to you. I love that. Wow, I feel really powerful having said that. Anyway, oh, do you know what? It's so funny. I do these forecasts and I don't know who's listening or what you're thinking when you're listening to them. But you know what? I've just enjoyed that so much. Anyway, the 9th then of February, the new moon is occurring again in this position, and it's in a square to the Uranus. Now, Uranus is in quite a great place here, in a fun place. You know, Uranus is saying, come on, let's take action in your local community. Let's have fun. Let's kick up some, you know, let's like be unconventional and different and what can we change about the local community? So, you know, Uranus is really I don't know, a bit of a troublemaker in the 3rd house, really bringing up loads of new intuitive thoughts about what life is about and where you are and trying to make things good fun. And so there's this new moon coming up in your 12th house, really sort of saying you've got a new intuition, you've got this new psychic ability, you've got this new connection to yourself. And it's being encouraged. It's like, as you look around in your local environment, you're like, damn right I do. God, I've got to get to work with this. And it really feels like there's some tension and some frustration to play with your new skills and to have fun. So yeah, I love this aspect, the first 2 weeks. Powerful stuff. Then we've got on the 19th, when we go into Pisces season. So the sun crosses over into the sign of Pisces. On the same day, Chiron goes into its conjunction with the true north node. And that is a very, very strong energy. This is something that's a global energy that we're all feeling in our different, unique ways. And it's a point of pain. And it's a point of realization. It's a point showing us where there are things we're not focusing on. There's pains, but we're not able to release them for ourselves because we're not focusing on them on the right way, you know. And the North Node is there saying, look, come on, you've got a purpose here. And if you could just get that pain out of the way, you'd be able to wake up and see your purpose. And so it's kind of like this promise. See your pain, deal with your pain, feel it, acknowledge it, let it cry, let it roar, love it back into integration. And in that moment of integration, all of a sudden your purpose is going to burst forth. You're going to know. So it's like this beautiful idea. Now, when I think about Chiron conjunct North Node, which is a big thing, it happens approximately every 18 years. The last one was 15 years ago. The next one is in 2038, 14 years and 8 months time. So it's not a common occurrence. However, it does make squares every 4 years, approximately, and it does make oppositions approximately between 6 to 8 years. So they do come into connection. And when they come into connection, they create an energy of healing and an upsurge of purpose. So, you know, there's this healing thing going on for you, but there's this healing thing going on for everyone right now, and the world and the collective. So, yeah, this is all happening in your second house about how you are valuing yourself and how you earn money. Big stuff. So you may well feel a little bit tense and tired as the sun goes into your, your first house. That's normally the time when people are waking up, when the sun crosses into the first house. But you might just want to lie in, have your Saturday morning lie in, sit back, do a bit of journaling, think, okay, yeah, what pain am I not acknowledging right now? Oh, I wonder what that has to do with my purpose. And I wonder what that has to do with my values. And I wonder what that has to do with my resources and how I could earn a bit more. And then the next week, we've got the full moon in Virgo. Wow, that's your opposite sign. This is a very sensitive full moon for everybody when we have the full moon in our opposite sign, or, like in our seventh house. So the full moon is there showing that everyone in your life is really over emotional and blah, 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 and you're probably better off staying away from them. So if you've got like drama queens in your life, they're so going to kind of come banging on your door with a big complaint. But you might choose to look at them. If you think of the seventh house as like the cosmic projector screen, you might notice that the people that are, having histrionics and having this massive reaction, actually what's going on is, if you could acknowledge that you also might be having deep reactions to things, deep panics about how things are organized and how things are working and what needs to be done, which are very sort of Virgoan things, you might realize that, when you share some of that with them and don't put it all on them, that it's easier to deal with. So there is this kind of cry at the time of the full moon in the seventh house that you maybe face some of your emotions yourself. Now, that's also very sort of explainable because you've got Saturn going through this side of your chart, through your first house. And during that time, we are a bit on the dour side. We are a little bit super serious. And then Mercury's here at the same time, and the sun at the time of this full moon. So there's this convergence of Mercury, Saturn, Sun. So I would say in this last week, we are super serious, very serious about ourselves. And we could be putting that seriousness to good use in helping us in terms of smartening up our appearance and thinking about how our body works and looking after ourselves much better, having a lot of self-discipline. That's a real benefit of it. But if we're using the seriousness as a stick to beat ourselves up with, whilst looking at everyone else and saying, oh, you're so emotional, then we're not really winning. It's not very helpful. So I would say these last 2 weeks for you, Pisces Ascendant, is a time of real self-discovery. And the deeper you go, the easier it will be. Now, one last thing I want to share with you. I have created 2 quite big videos which have sign by sign breakdowns for your ascendant. So the Pluto one, I think I've already explained, is there. Pluto going into Aquarius, what that means to you. I've done it from, what it's revealing to you in this year ahead. So that could be useful to you if you haven't already listened to it. But the next one is I've created a video about this conjunction between Chiron and the North Node from the perspective of what is our gift? What is our gift that we're working on right now, that we don't realize we're working on right now, that will come into view in the next 14 years? What are we working on? Because if we have an understanding of that, we can also tie that into our local now goals and maybe our slightly further afield goals. Because, you know, most of us might have a goal for the month or an idea of where we might be in 6 months or maybe even 2 years. Some people in 5 years, 10 years. So it's more of a blueprint, not a forecast, but it's describing how you might be coming into your own and what your gift to the world might be. So check that out if that's of interest. Anyway, Pisces, I've had enough of your time. So much love to you, and keep being the gift that you are. Have a great month ahead, and hibernate well if that suits you. But anyway, hopefully see you in the next month in March. Have a great month. If I can be of help, just check me out below, in my details below. But anyway, have a great time and speak to you real soon. Bye for now. So there we go. That's the end of my forecast for all 12 signs. I hope they've been useful to you. I've said to all of you that, you know, there are other videos I've done with other forecasts which could be useful as well. You know, I think we can break down the cosmic patterns into so many different little subsections and sub themes. It's almost like, you know, one of your favorite series. So at the moment, I've been watching a little bit of Ted Lasso, which you might have watched. I don't know, but it's quite funny. Don't watch too much telly, but yeah, it's funny, you know, the life and times. And, you know, in any series that you watch, there's always like this overarching story that takes a whole season to explain. And then there's these little episodes that have got little sub-stories. And that's why I see really going on with all of the planets right now, is that we've got these long arc storylines like Pluto and Aquarius. And we've got this long, super storyline of Chiron in a conjunction with the North Node and that cycle and what that represents. And then we've got these short story arcs that are going on in February. For instance, Pluto, Mercury, Venus and Mars, in particular the Pluto, Venus and Mars conjunction, and then the Saturn, Mercury and Sun conjunction. These are all like the little subplots going on. So anyway, wherever you are in the world, whatever ascendant you are, whatever stories are going on for you right now, I wish you a fantastic February. And I look forward to seeing you in March. If you've enjoyed this and you haven't yet subscribed, please do. It really helps me, or feel free to share. If you want to comment, please do. Sometimes I take a while to get back, but I make it a mission that I respond to everyone because I really love it. I'd love to know what else I could put into my channel for you. What would help you right now with your passion for astrology, and what would help you to feel good about your life using astrology? So anyway, that's my invitation to you. Lots and lots of love. See you next month. Bye for now.